he has a dog that started howling, would not stop howling, would not stop barking. And he brings his howling dog in front of me and he goes, I want to show you what will happen to you if you ever open your mouth about what just occurred.
I walk through the valley of the shadow and I hold my head up high.
Clark Fredericks learned his fate today. It's a case where the judge struggled with imposing any time behind bars at all.
I felt I couldn't come forward to the police, that nothing would be done to Dennis Pegg, and that I'd only further humiliate and traumatize myself. One day, I'm in a deli, and who comes into that deli but my abuser, Dennis Pegg? He had a young boy by his side, and I hear that young boy call him the name he used to make me call him. And I just ripped open that 30-year-old wound, and my life just collapsed that day. And I've got all this rage and hatred, and it's been growing and building and building. I'm haunted by that kid in that deli, and I'm like, it's time to go confront this guy. As a young boy at Christmas one year, he bought me a whetstone kit and taught me how to sharpen my Boy Scout hunting knife. And I kept that thing razor sharp all these years. And that's what I grabbed to go to his house with.
I feel for that kid, man. The system failed you, and no one came to that kid's rescue. So, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
I walk up to the door, I rip it open, I break the hinge, and I'll go into the face and the voice I used in his doorway right now. I'll take myself back in time for a split second here, so your audience and you can feel and see the rage and anger and hatred I had for this animal at that moment in his doorway. Try not to do that often.
I typically give people an intro when they come on the show, just like a brief synopsis of their life to kind of give the listener an idea of what they're going to be in for the next couple hours. But I'm not going to do that with you. I'm going to let you tell us about your life. But what I do want to say is, again, we were just kind of talking about this off camera, is if this, I'm really glad you're here, and I appreciate you coming out, because I think that your story and this podcast is going to help a lot of people. And if it just helps one person, then that's a huge win for me, and I hope it is for you too. But again, I have a feeling it's going to help a lot more than that. But yeah, man, just that. Just thank you for coming. I appreciate you sitting down and sharing your story with us. It's an honor to have you. So thank you.
Rock on, man. My pleasure.
So for, I guess, everybody's childhood is kind of the basis and the start for their story, but yours in particular is has an impact on the rest of your life. So I guess start us off there. Where'd you grow up, and then kind of tell us how your childhood unfolded.
Sure. I grew up in a little sleepy town, let's say, Stillwater, New Jersey. And it's just like it sounds. The Paulskill River cuts right through the town, starts at the Paulskill Lake, and then, there's a dam there, goes down through the river. The river goes right through Stillwater. And, it's in the really rural area of wow, we are tongue twisted already. This is going to be some podcast. Really rural area of New Jersey, up in the hills, up in the mountains. And it's just a lot of outdoor activities, hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, skiing. We've got a ski resort in our county, Mountain Creek. So everything is based outdoors, a lot of lakes, a lot of rivers. And that's what we did, as kids. Like, I grew up, I was born in 1965, and it's so difficult for people nowadays to understand this. But back then, the norm was, as soon as you could ride your bike, you were told to be gone. And people are like, you're telling me at 4, 5, 6 years old, if you could ride your bike, you could be gone? And I'm like, yeah, that's how it was. That was just how it was. Parents didn't want you in your room on a computer, on your Game Boy. There was no such thing. They wanted you out of the house, getting dirty, and being home at dinner time. You were taught stranger danger. That was jammed down your throat. And you weren't taught to look out for their friends who were adults. You weren't taught to look out for the teacher or the cop or the Boy Scout leader or the priest or anybody in authority who had a place in society. You weren't told to look out for them. You were told to look out for, the scary looking homeless person who may be, snatching you, from under the bridge or something, And that's just not the case, My story involves abuse. And, 95% of those who are abused is by somebody they know and trust. And I was no different. So growing up, everything's outdoors, learned to ride a bike. I lived in this lake community, Paul and Skill Lake, which is part of Stillwater. And as soon as I could ride my bike, it was down to the lake where the dam was. That's where all the kids congregated. Just there was tennis courts, basketball courts, playground, fishing, skipping rocks, just softball field. Everything was down there. And that's where we hung out all day long. These summer months like we're in right now, you would, eat breakfast and go head down to the lake, and then be there all day long. If you wanted to come home and grab lunch and go back, you could do that. Otherwise, you're back at dinner time, And that's just the norm, So it was a great way to grow up, a lot of freedom, but that freedom also lends its hand to those with evil intent. And you would think, in a real rural area, you're safer, but that's not the case at all. You're like, oh, well, crime only happens in the congregated urban cities, No, just it seems like predators and pedophiles in rural areas can hide in plain sight. And that's what happened in our area. My abuser was a Boy Scout leader. He was also a lieutenant in the sheriff's department. So you got a double bill right there. And then on top of that, he put himself into every organization under the sun. He was a member of Kiwanis. Kiwanis is for the betterment of children in the community. And he's a member of the Kiwanis Club. Can it get much worse than that? The betterment of children. He was in charge of the young cadets for New Jersey. So if you wanted to become a cop, you could join the young cadets and get training. But to make it into the young cadets, you had to go through this guy. And he would have to approve you or nominate you. He was a trail angel on the Appalachian Trail. He would stand out there. They'd get reports when hikers should be coming through. And you're supposed to hand out water and protein bars, candy bars, something. But he would take it a step further. Why don't you come back to my house for a warm shower and a hot meal? You've been out on this trail for weeks and months. Let just come home. He was an honorary member of Boys Town. Boys Town's out, I believe, in Nebraska, and they've had all sorts of abuse problems out there. And he's an honorary member of them, of course. He was a mentor. He told everybody he was a mentor of young troubled boys. And to me, when I hear mentoring, I equate it to molesting. I hate the word mentoring. It's just He was a molester. He was a demon. He was the dragon in our area, fire-breathing dragon. When people want to think of evil and think of the devil, it's not the red-looking figure with horns and a tail and a pitchfork. It's somebody who's suave, who's sociable, who's friendly, who's outgoing, who everybody looks up to, who has ill intent, and is hunting children. That's true evil. That's the devil right there. And that's what this guy was. So my first recollection of him was from my earliest memories, because I had a brother who was 6 years older than me. And my brother Jay was in the Scouts, and he was my brother's scoutmaster. I had a next door neighbor, Jeff, who lived directly across the street. We were on Walnut Drive. We were over here. Jeff was over there. Jeff had the basketball court in hoop in his driveway. I was over there all the time playing basketball. We had the big backyard, horseshoe pits. We had a big party patio in the back, screened in, bar in it. Jeff was always at our house. He was like an older brother to me. So he and my brother Jay were the same age, 6 years older than me, same grade, in the Scouts together. Dennis Pegg is their Boy Scout leader. And I was born with a hole in my heart. At age 6, I had to get open heart surgery. They monitored me for X amount of years. The doctor said, we have a 6-month window to operate on Clark. I went into Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City in 1971 and had a life or death surgery, open heart surgery, to repair a hole in my heart. I was in the hospital for a month. That was in April of 71. A few months later, that summer, right around this time period that we're in now, June, July, I'm still recovering. I'm still healing. I came in, everybody was out back in our patio area, the screened-in bar area, and I came upstairs to get a soda and to watch TV for a minute, and there's a boom, 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 on the front door, and I get up, and it's Dennis Pegg, my brother's Boy Scout leader, the lieutenant in the sheriff's department. I loved this guy. He was, fun and outgoing and always had his gun on him and wore a badge and, just a big hulking guy, probably 6'2", 6'3", 250 pounds, just one of those big dudes. And I loved Dennis. And my parents were so proud of me for surviving this open heart surgery. They used to have me lift my shirt to their friends and collect a quarter from everybody. And everybody would be, Clark, congratulations, good job. One of their friends was Dennis Pegg, the scoutmaster, lieutenant. Of course you can trust him. So he's like, where is everybody, little buddy? Tussling my hair. And I'm like, they're all out back. I just came in to watch cartoons for a minute. And he's like, let's sit down on the couch. Come sit next to me. And as I sit, he, pats my knee. And he's like, hey, how about a quarter? I get to see your scar. I'm like, sure, Den. He gives me a quarter. I lift my shirt up. And I have keloid condition where my scar is raised up. So he's like, I've never seen a scar so raised up like yours. How about I give you $1 if you let me touch it? I'm 6 years old. I'm trusting of this guy. I have no thought in the world of ill intent. So I'm like, sure. So he's, rubbing his fingers up and down my open heart surgery scar. And then he goes below the scar to my abdomen, right at my belt line. And he's like probing and touching and rubbing. Is your stomach sore from the surgery? I'm like, no, not at all. He's like, okay, a minute or so of that. And he's like, all right, Here's your dollar. Go put that in your piggy bank. And this is where he got me right off the bat. This has to be our little secret. If you can't keep a secret, we can't be friends. And, being a secret keeper is what did me in. Pedophiles are stopped in their tracks if they don't have secrecy. Secrecy is the only thing that allows them to go on to other victims and to prolong this. So if I talk to parents, the number one thing I would tell them is to tell your children, never, ever, ever should an adult ask you to keep a secret. There's no reason, whether it's a parent asking their kid to keep a secret. Why are you keeping a secret from your spouse? Like, there's no good reason to have a young child keep a secret. And that's what they should drill into their children. It is like, if anybody asks you to keep a secret, you should come to us immediately. That's number one. Predators, pedophiles, they need to initiate touch at some point. He just did that with me, He's sort of like, that should have came a little later in the process of grooming, but he tested the water right then. And like, how evil can somebody be? Like, this open heart surgery scar, which signifies life or death for me at age 6, that's what this animal uses to start grooming me and to initiate touch. Like, to touch my open heart surgery scar that I just had 3 months prior, being in the hospital for a month. Life or death situation. And that's what this animal's like getting off on, to see if he can touch it and then to keep me silent. And I said, of course, Dan, I can keep a secret, He said, okay, go put that in your piggy bank and I'll meet you out back. And he goes down to the family and just cranks on the smile and, hey, everybody, and hey, Dennis, everybody loved Dennis. And I don't know, my brother, so this is age 6 for me. My brother was age 12 then. And I don't know at what part in the grooming process he and Jeff were, but they were both in the grooming process also. And Dennis, there's no telling how many kids at once he's got in the pipeline of grooming. And, for me, it was years. He is slow, methodical. It's not like he's just grabbing you and touching you and that's on to the next. He's taking his time. So down at the lake community where I lived, like I said, that's where, as soon as you could ride your bike, that's where you went. And that's where all the kids in the lake community would congregate. And that was Dennis's trolling grounds. So he's coming by there. He's spending hours with us young boys, teaching us to fish, how to cast, how to fish, how to, use a lure. Nothing nefarious, just a really good guy, and it was all out of the watchful eye of our parents too. It's down at the lake. So, when everything came to a head eventually for me, my mother said, I don't even remember Dennis showing that much attention to you. I'm like, yeah, it was all down at the lake, out of your watchful eye. So from 6 on, just spending time with us down there, hanging out, teaching us to fish. And then, the grooming process has to transform over time. So build trust, build friendship, build a relationship, not only with the potential victim, but they have to build that relationship with the parents as well and with the community. You got to fool the community. You got to fool the parents, fool the community, and then fool your victim. And that's what he did over the course of these years. And 9 years old, he's inviting me into his pickup truck to have a beer with him down at the lake. He's a lieutenant in the sheriff's department, inviting if you look at a picture, of a 9-year-old kid, like they're little tiny things. And he's like, hey, come into my truck. Always had a 6-pack of Budweiser in his truck. Come into my truck. And it wasn't just me. You know, I'd go down to the lake and one of the other boys would be like, oh, I had a beer with Dennis in his truck yesterday. Like, oh, yeah, me too the other week, you know. Like, so he's, you know, this is his MO. And, you know, he was always going out west, like twice a year. He's taking trips out west to the Grand Tetons, to Yellowstone, to Jackson Hole, all different, you know, areas out there, Grand Canyon. And on one of these trips, he comes back and down at the lake, he's like, I met the Marlboro Man, you know, on my trip. Back in the 70s, the Marlboro Man was a fictional character on the back of magazines, the quintessential cool guy, you know, cigarette in his mouth, you know, chaps on, leather vest, you know, riding a horse. And he tells me, like, yeah, I met the Marlboro Man. And you know what? He shared with me that he's gay. And you know what? It didn't bother me at all, Clark. You know, like, he was such a great guy. He and I just hit it off. We spent days together, you know, just, you know, really hitting it off. He was a great guy. So he's testing me to see if I'm recoiling. He's normalizing homosexual behavior with me, you know, just what a great guy he is. Nothing with a predator is ever how it seems on paper. They're always calculating. They're always steps ahead. They're like a chess master. Like you would think, oh, he might not even have met the Marlboro Man. Probably not. But he concocted this story, you know, and that the guy's gay. The coolest guy in America in that era, he makes gay. Like, you know, so nothing is as it seems. He shows me pornography. He goes through this whole story, how his friend bought an old farmhouse. There was a desk left behind. I opened up the drawers, and it's filled with pornographic pictures. Hop in my truck, you know. We'll have a beer and look at some of them. I grabbed a handful of them. I'm like, cool. I saw my dad's Playboy magazine, you know, under his bed. Like, all right, we'll see some naked women in these Polaroids, and it's all close-ups of penises, young male penises, and he's giggling like a little school kid as he's looking at them and then handing them to me, and I'm just like, and he's just like patting my knee. Aren't these a riot? Look at these, and I'm like, Dan, where's all the women? Oh, those must have been in the other drawer. You know, I just grabbed a handful of these pictures. You know, when I'm over there again, I'll grab pictures out of the other drawer. And I'm like, aren't these a riot though? I'm like, you know. So again, you know, and years later, I thought to myself, I wonder if my brother and Jeff were in those Polaroids, if that's what I was looking at, if their penises were in those Polaroids. So we got, you know, we've got pornography, we've got alcohol, we've got secrets, it was like he built us against the world, you know. It was me and him, you know, we're a team, you know. He's elevating a child up to be like an equal with him, you know. Why, you know, back then he was, you know, probably late 20s. You know, why is an adult male wanting to spend time with little kids? Like, it's just not, without having kids. Like, if your kid's in baseball and you're there with him and, you know, you become a coach or something and you're around the kids, fine. But why would an adult, like, I don't want to spend time with little kids. Like, they make you nuts. I'd go to my brothers and sisters and, their nieces and nephews. And after a couple hours, I'm like, I'm good. I got my dose of birth control, like, I'm like, I'm all right. So you got to question, like, why that coach is taking such interest in your child. Why is the piano instructor, like, really taking an interest in your child? Why does that teacher think your child's so special and they want to mentor them to really make them blossom? The doctor, whoever it may be, it's not normal to, like, want to be spending all your free time with children. It's just not. You should have peers that you want to spend time with. But again, he mostly did this out of the eye of parents down at the lake, in these Kiwanis Club things, betterment of children in the society. He was the chaplain for the American Legion. Like, a guy who's a professional hunter of children is the chaplain saying prayer at the start of each American Legion meeting. Like just pure evil. Like, I mentioned, like, how do you define the devil? That's the devil right there. Like, you're raping little kids and you're giving the prayer at the start of the American Legion meeting. It doesn't get much more horrible than that. So it goes on to eventually around 10. He's like, I wrestled your brother and Jeff, and I want to see how tough you are compared to them. So we would start wrestling. And when I say we would start wrestling, he would allow me to be the aggressor, like, he would, not really be doing anything. And I guess this was his foreplay time, like, to let me be the aggressor, trying to pin him. And all of a sudden it would be like a light switched in him. Like, his eyes would go dark. His whole mannerism would change to aggressive, to mean, to nasty. And he would get me on the ground, get on top of me, be gyrating, ordering me to fight as hard as I could to get out from under him, squirm, wanting me to squirm around, and not realizing it at that time when I'm 10, but looking back, him having an erection during this and wanting me to squirm and fight against him, against his body weight on top of me. How many times we wrestled, I don't know, half a dozen, He was always getting reasons for me to go to his house, like, we'd be fishing and he'd slip it into the water and soak his sneaker. I just slipped off a rock and let's go to my house so I can change. Or he'd step into the deep mud by the river and, like, his boot or sneaker would get covered in mud. Come on, we got to go to my house. Or by the dam area where I lived, he'd be like, the fish aren't biting. Let's go over to the grist. There was an old grist mill right on the river, where there was a bridge and, they stocked there. He'd be like, let's go over by the grist mill. And I got to stop at home just for a minute, we'll stop at home. So every time we would go to his house, have a Budweiser. So this was, 9, 10, 11. It was, he literally lived 2 miles away. So it's not like we're talking less than a 5-minute drive. Throw your bike in the back of my truck. Let me grab it, throw it in there. And we'll go over to the other side and see what's happening over there. And just get me to his house, get me comfortable in his house. And, so we're wrestling now in the 10 to 11 range. At 11, I hate even, like, repeating this, it's just,
We
but
don't have to go anywhere you don't want to.
Yeah, it's just like, he's like, I'm at his house. This time he gives me a glass of blackberry brandy. Like, chug it, you'll catch a buzz. So I chugged this glass of blackberry brandy, and it burns. He's like, here, have a Budweiser, it'll take the burn away. And you're 10, 11 years old, and you're buzzed. And he's like, we're gonna play a game called Bumping Logs. And he's like, I'll be back in a minute. And he goes to his bedroom, shuts the door, and comes out a few minutes later. And it looked like he had stuffed something in his shorts. He wore those cargo shorts, and it looked like there was something in there. And he's like, stand up. And he pulls me against him. And, he's pulling me into whatever he's got in his shorts. And he's like, your log's not ready. We got to get your log ready. And sits me down on a chair. It's a summer month. I'm wearing shorts. And he's like, whatever happens, do not open your eyes. I'm like, okay. And, I'm still love this guy. Trust him. Like, he's a lieutenant in the sheriff's department. My brother's Boy Scout leader. And by now I've joined, I'm in the Scouts. And in the blink of an eye, after he tells me to shut my eyes and do not open them, he slips my shorts off and begins performing oral sex on me. And instantly my eyes open, and he's got his penis in his hand, masturbating as he's doing this. And I'm like clenched to the chair, just frozen in fear, frozen in not knowing what the hell is going on. And just like, and like, I'm like, everything's locked up. Like, I'm digging into this wooden chair, like ready to snap a finger. And my back is arched, like just like paralyzed and stiff, like, and just can't move, can hardly breathe. And he does what he does to himself, and it's over. And gets 2 more beers afterwards. like nothing happened. And like, look, what just occurred there, that's our secret. Like, that stays between us. Everything was a secret. That Marlboro Man story was a secret. The beer in his truck was a secret. I could get in a lot of trouble, as a lieutenant for giving you a beer, So this is between us. He always had candies and gum in his truck to, for your breath. The pornography pictures. This is our secret, Can't let people know I showed you these pictures. And then now this is our secret. And drops me back off at the lake. And it's not like I'm seeing him every day, every week. It could be, I may not be down at that moment when he's trolling through, or he's off doing whatever with other kids at other places. And, so it's not like I'm constantly seeing him. And I'm able to just be like, I don't know what the hell just happened there. But I'm just putting that, we can disassociate from stuff, and just I disassociated from it. I put it into a box, into a compartment, and I'm like, whatever, and then the next year, as I'm coming up to the next summer, I'm graduating elementary school, because they built a new high school. They took 7th and 8th grade from the elementary school, put it into the high school. So I'm graduating 6th grade. And leading up to that, he starts concocting this story that he needs help with from me. And it requires me breathing a certain way. And one day he's like, let's go to my house, have a beer, and see if you can breathe the right way for this story. He wanted to teach a hunt. He wanted me to lay out with fake blood on me in the woods and teach a friend of his who always shot as soon as he saw something without knowing if it was safe to shoot. He would say to me, and I want to teach him a lesson, and we'll come upon you after he shoots. We'll come upon you out there and you'll have this fake blood on you.
Like a hunter, like he just shot a human by accident
Yeah,
because he freaked out?
Yeah, like his friend. Yeah. And this will teach him a lesson. And like, even at 12 years old, it sounded like a cockamamie, like just like insane thing. I'm like, Dennis, oh no, it'll work. It'll work. This guy has to be stopped before he actually does hurt someone. He just shoots and doesn't even know if it's safe to shoot. And we're going to teach him a lesson with this. And you've got to when we come upon you, you have to be making like a gurgling sound, like you're like a death rattle. So he wanted me to practice my death rattle. And we go to his house. And again, did he have a friend who shot like that and hunted like that? Probably not. More than likely not. But like I said, you can't take anything a predator says at face value. There's, like nothing. This guy just came up with stories to, what he would plan in his head how to get you. And we get to his house. It's a summer day, and his house is stifling, like boiling. And I as it became an adult, I looked back and I questioned if he didn't have the heat cranked up that day, like because something wasn't right, as hot as it was in there. And it was instantly blackberry brandy again, instantly beers, and then let's practice your breathing on the bed. See if you can lie there like you're dead. No, you're not doing it right. Let me push down on your stomach and push the air out and see if, that helps. No, that's not right. Your clothes are in the way. Let's get these clothes out of the way. And it's so hot in here, I'm going to take mine off too. And then gets behind me and bear hugs me and rapes me. And I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm screaming, I'm crying. And he has a dog that started howling. Started barking, would not stop howling, would not stop barking. And at one point during this assault, he whispers in my ear. He's got me in the bear hug from behind, and he whispers in my ear, just another minute, just hold on another minute, so that he could finish and get himself off. And, keep in mind, this is a guy who's in society as a Boy Scout leader, in society as a lieutenant, in society as a member of Kiwanis, in society as the chaplain at the American Legion, in society as an honorary member of Boy Town, in society as the one who gets to determine the young cadets who gets to move forward into the program or not. And this is what he's whispering in my ear. And he finishes. And he cleans me up. And he sets me down at his kitchen table. And he gives me a beer. And he brings his howling dog in front of me. And he goes, I want to show you what will happen to you if you ever open your mouth about what just occurred. And he starts beating his dog with his big, giant, meaty fist, and beating his dog and beating his dog. And I am screaming bloody murder for him to stop, crying, begging him, pleading, stop, Dennis, stop, please, please, please. And he beats this dog until it's at a heap at my feet. And he goes, the same thing will happen to you if you ever open up your mouth about this. So am I supposed, when he drops me off back at the lake, am I instantly supposed to just run home to my father? The guy I respected and trusted second most to my father has just done this. And it's not like it's the homeless troll under the bridge at Paulskill Lake who drugged me under there and did this. Then you would go running home, screaming home. But it's somebody you loved and trusted and respected who just has done this unbelievable thing. And when he dropped me off back down at the lake, I ran down the river. I didn't want to be up by the dam area where the kids were. I ran down the river. I ditched my bike in the weeds, and I was just like standing on the edge of the river, like trying to let the flowing water, the sound of the river, like try to like cleanse me and purify me and heal me. And my mind said right there and then, we are never going to talk about this. Talking about it's reliving it, and we do not want to ever relive that. And your mind thinks it's doing you good, but that's the worst thing you can let your mind tell you. You have to talk about it. You have to tell someone. And unfortunately, I did the complete opposite. And that Christmas, so that's the summer, and at Christmas, I got a dirt bike, motorcycle. And now, to avoid being back down at the dam in those summer months and spring months, I hooked up with older kids at the lake who had dirt bikes, and I just started riding with them and avoiding going back down there and smoking weed with them. You know, they're a couple of years older. So now I'm smoking weed, you know, in 7th grade. Something in 6th grade, like drugs in the elementary school, like weren't even like, it wasn't even on anybody's radar. And now 7th grade in high school, I'm smoking weed on a weekly basis. Like I got this trauma. I got this mind of mine that I can't shut down 24/7. It's going about what occurred. And I got to try to like dilute those thoughts somehow. And weed did that. And, you know, I would come home after school and I would go into my parents' liquor cabinet and I would get a glass and I would take a little out of every single bottle in there, mixing rum, sherry, brandy, vodka, cream de menthe, blackberry brandy, whatever was in there, just pouring a little, you know, get a half glass full and chug it down and then go out the door. And, you know, I would put water back in the bottles. My older bride, I had an older sister. My brother was 6 years older. My sister's 5 years older. And my parents, I would hear them like, which one of you is hitting the liquor cabinet? And you think you're smart by adding water into it and diluting everything? You think we're stupid? And I'm just like, you know, no, I wasn't even on a question that it was me. It was definitely one of those two. It was me. And, you know, I am just, no coping skills. There was no agencies back then, you know, no social workers. The only ones to go to were police, and he was a lieutenant in the law enforcement, you know, so that avenue's cut off. So you just feel completely helpless, hopeless and helpless. I would later learn, you know, as the story progresses, I end up in prison and a therapist in prison. I got into a group therapy class for childhood trauma, and the therapist asked us, how many of you shoplifted when you were younger? Every hand went up. I started shoplifting. I got caught at a CVS pharmacy at the Rockaway Mall stealing cigars. The therapist in prison asked, how many of you either played with fire or became a firebug? Every hand went up. I was lighting everything on fire. And, you know, I learned it's, you do those things, you cut yourself, all those things are try to regulate your emotions. You're all dysregulated. It's to try to give you control back. And it's an avenue to let go of anger and stress by lighting things on fire or doing something thrilling like, you know, shoplifting. So I was doing those things, you know, so like There were signs. You know, back then, your parents, nobody like dug deep into behavior. They just would see behavior and take a authoritarian disciplinary approach to try to correct it. So I come home from school one day, 7th grade, and I had a little safe in my room that if you just took the handle and yanked it real hard, you could, the thing that, would lock it was so paper thin, you could just bend that and it would bend and open, And I guess that's what my father did. And in there I had a pipe, a weed pipe, not an old man's pipe, weed pipe, rolling papers, and a little baggie of weed. And I come home and they're sitting on my bed. And I'm like, and like, I got those things. Like we had a roller rink, the Hampton roller rink. So like 7th grade, everybody's going to a roller rink. And like they had these big round sitting areas that everybody would just throw their coat on. So like, there's a sitting area here. There's like, 50 coats on each thing. And I sit down and like there's something hard in the thing. So I reach back and I pull it out and it's a pipe, a weed pipe. I'm like, score. I reach in. I'm like, rolling papers. Yes. I reach back in. Weed. Yeah.
Best day ever.
Yeah. And so that's where those things came from. And like, just like the next week, my father just happened to go through my room. You think you're cute with your red eyes and whatever, if you know somebody and you live with somebody, you can tell if they have one beer. Like you can just tell when somebody's a hair off. Like there's some. So, they would question me and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So my father goes through my room, finds this weed and stuff. And, like instead of, and it was a sign of the times too, it's like, so I try to tell parents now, like, you got to open up a dialogue with your kid. Like if you see behavior that is dysfunctional and, disruptive, you instead of just freaking out and becoming a dictator to them, that's a perfect opportunity to open up dialogue. So like my father didn't open up dialogue with me. And he just said, he came into the room behind me and he said, I am not putting up with this crap. He's like, your brother drove us nuts and you're not going to drive us nuts also. He goes, this stops right here, right now, or I'm sending you to military school. Valley Forge, Pennsylvania has military school, and your ass will be down there so quick. So like, it's not like, all right, you just got caught shoplifting at the mall. Like I got caught by security for CVS, and like, I ended up getting out of it. I had a buddy who broke into a hunting cabin, stole a quarter keg of beer from it, called me up. He's like, hey, I got a quarter keg. I'm going to drive down on my motorcycle, dirt bike, taking the abandoned railroad tracks down from where he lived with a keg. And I met him. We had this field where we rode motorcycles and stuff. And I met him there, and we popped the cork out of it, and drinking, and he got caught, and they wanted to know where the keg was, and he said Clark Fredericks has it. So cops show up, and so like, I get caught shoplifting. I'm lighting everything on fire. Nobody knew back then that those were symbolic of abuse. My buddy's bringing his stolen keg to me. And my father's finding all this paraphernalia and weed, and like, perfect opportunity, son. Like, all right, you got this going on, this going on, this going on, this going on. There's obviously a problem. Like, let's talk. Like, come on. Instead, it was, I'm going to send you to military school. So that clammed me up even more. Like, all right, I can't talk to this dude. So he told me, I'm leaving those on your bed. You decide what you're going to do with them. And I took him down to the lake. I threw him into the lake. But then, like 2 weeks later, with my thoughts like making me nuts, like I got more weed. Just tried to be a little more careful about it. And that's how my coping mechanisms worked. And going into high school, my brother back then, the drinking age was 18, and they had paper licenses, no picture on them. And his expired. And he was like, here, take my license. Maybe you can get served with it. Nobody batted an eye. He would take me into the local shot and beer joint, Toasties, and say to the bartender, hey, this is my brother. And I'd be like, is he good, Jay? Yeah, he's good. All right, what do you want?
Good enough for me.
That's it. That's all, like all of them. So I'm a freshman in high school, going into Toasties with my brother. I'm going in there buying packaged goods. We had this liquor store in Newton, McKeebe's. You go in there, and he'd make you sign a sheet of paper stating that you're of age. I'm like, okay. So I'd write. First off, I got my brother's thing, so I'm writing J. Fredericks. I certify I'm of age. I'm like, sure, I'll sign whatever the hell you want as long as you're going to give me beer. like, what does that do? Again, the sign of the times, man. That's why things have changed now, So, and so, like, I was just off to the races, man. Like, abandoned studies, didn't do much with sports, played basketball a couple of years, and just like was drinking heavily and being a party animal in high school, and that's I did let down my guard one time in either, I don't know if it was 7th grade or 8th grade. Teacher in English class went to each student, say there was 15, 20 of us in there, and she assigned a letter of the alphabet to each person. I got assigned the letter S, and we had to write a 1-page short story using that letter to start as many words as we could. So I got the letter S. I wrote about being a slave on a ship, where the shipmaster is a gay guy who's coming into my bunk at night on the ship to rape me. And I'm having to keep a metal pipe. I wrote a steel bar next to my bunk to beat him off with. And here a 12 or 13-year-old kid is writing about being attacked by a gay guy and being a slave on a ship and guy trying to rape him. And the teacher gave me an A and said, use more paragraphs next time. And that was my only time of like letting down my guard to like let where my pain like just boiled out of me without me being able to control it. It just came out in this, and she must have like, because my mother worked in the school, in the library, and they must have thought like, oh, well, if there was a problem, I'm sure Joan would know, and Clark's always smiling. Like I cranked on a smile to fool everybody. And like, I'm sure Joan would know if there was a problem. Like Clark just has a wild imagination. So like, it was a great short story, and he gets an A for it.
Do you mind if I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
I want you to keep going, but do you think that, so like overall this time, Dennis is kind of drilling into your subconscious to not tell anyone about this. And you've had this moment with this essay where you do let your guard down kind of for the first time, whether it's a conscious letting guard down or like, your subconscious is like, let's just lean into this a little bit, whatever that is. And then when you do that, you're basically met with still being that helpless person that, no one's coming to your rescue. So does that reinforce even further you just saying, fuck it, I'm keeping this to myself?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's like, all right, well, that boiled out of me and got nowhere. So there's no sense in letting it out again. Nothing's going to happen. Yeah, that was the mindset. And I forgot all about that essay. And as we go through the story, you'll hear I got arrested later on in life, and my mother, looking through all my childhood stuff, comes upon this essay and just read it for the first time and could not believe what she was reading. Like, how the hell did this go unnoticed? How did nobody come to me with this essay back then? She was shocked. And yeah, so like, no sense in talking about it because I just let my guard down and nothing happened. So that's it.
I don't know about you guys, but I have an exceptionally hard time finding jeans that I like. They're either too skinny, too baggy, or the leg opening's too big. It looks like I'm wearing my mom's bootcut jeans. So these are the perfect jean. These are their slim fit, so it's the best of both worlds for me. Not too skinny, not too baggy either. They're super comfortable. They're not going to crush your nuts or give you like a saggy diaper butt in jeans. And they're surprisingly stretchy and soft. You could do all kinds of stuff in them, bend down, do what you got to do. And the crazy part is that they're only $79.99, so they're way more affordable than your typical pair of jeans. So for a limited time, our listeners are getting 15% off plus free shipping if you go to theperfectjean.nyc and use code Dalton15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with promo code Dalton15. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and let them know that we sent you. Back to the show.
Up to this point, up till my junior year in high school, what I felt towards what happened was mostly 99% directed at myself. I hated myself. I despised myself. I hated this friggin' scar on my chest. Like, I didn't want to show it to anybody because it signified, my abuse now. Instead of signifying life or death, it now signified abuse. So, like, taking swim class, I hated. That was complete trigger for me, like having to take my shirt off in swim class because I hated that scar. And I hated myself. Like, why didn't I do more? Why didn't I fight? Why didn't, like, as you get older, this is where, like, it really, like, screws with your mind is, you become an adult and you're the grown version of yourself, like I'm 6'3", 235, and you just look, now you're looking back on it at what happened with the adult version of you, and you're like, we should have fought to the death. We should have done this. We should have done. No, you're a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old little kid that's this size with somebody who's a master predator who you loved and trusted, and they betrayed you. But it mind screws you, And so I blamed myself for everything, hated myself. And in my junior year of high school, my next door neighbor, Jeff, put a shotgun in his mouth and blew his head off next door. And that's when everything switched. I blamed Dennis for his death. And my rage and hatred for Dennis just exploded because I loved Jeff like he was my brother. And I blamed Dennis for Jeff's death. And just rage and hatred was born that day towards Dennis, and it just grew and grew and grew over the course of years. I go off to college, went to Northeastern University up in Boston, in a city setting, far away from Little Stillwater, sleepy New Jersey. And this is in the 80s, I tried cocaine for the first time and absolutely loved it. Instant love affair. Like all the insecurities I had, all the inferiority complex, the self-loathing just evaporated. And I felt strong and powerful and confident and just absolutely loved the euphoria that Coke brought on. It wasn't something I could really afford back then, so it would just be sporadic doing it. But first time I did it, a roommate of mine, a friend from his hometown who went to Boston University, called him up and said, "Hey, we're having a cocaine party. If you want to bring your roommates over, pick up a couple cases of beer and come over." So we're like, "Sure." So that's how we tried it. We were up all night into the next day, and just we all had a blast. And that would come back to haunt me later on in life. The problem with drugs that I tell everybody is that they work. They make you feel better. They'll numb you. They don't only numb the negative aspects in your personality, they numb the positive aspects. That's why you become like a zombie on them. And then once they really get their claws into you, which cocaine did to me later in life, it's a game changer. It's not that fun, euphoric thing anymore. It just becomes a monster. But back then, it was great. I met the love of my life. I met this girl, Lisa. She was completely different from any girl I knew back in Stillwater. She was Jewish. She was bubbly. She was outgoing. She was cute, sexy. And over the next, 5-6 years, we had a on again, off again relationship. They had the co-op program up in Northeastern where you would work 3 to 6 months in a field related to your major. So you could be off anywhere, for a 3-month period, 6-month period, and then be back at school for 6 months. So you're working, if you're a computer science major, you're working in a computer science, doing something with programming or something. And there's no cell phones back then. So like we would be together, we would reconnect at school, then we'd, be off on our own for 3 to 6 months. I'm sleeping with whoever in that period of time. She's doing whatever. And then we'd reconnect. And she would make comments back then how I would get the soldiers get the 1,000-mile stare, they call it. I would get that. And she would literally be waving a hand in front of my face, like, hello, hello, hello. And there's nothing from me. I'm just staring off. And she's like, and then she would hit me and I'd be like, what? She's like, where'd you just go? She's like, you went somewhere deep in your mind. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know. She's like, where are you at? What was that all about? I'm like, I don't know. You're imagining something. And I would just play it off, and that would be, my abuse with Dennis Pegg, rearing its ugly head. And it was still fresh in me back then. And I had college down to a science. I would study for 3 or 4 nights a week, separate myself from my roommates, my buddies, go to study halls, do my work. I was a great student. And then I could be a blackout drunk for 3 or 4 nights a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, look out, Tornado Clark is coming into town, man. And and that's just how it was. It was my coping mechanism. Um, After we graduated, Lisa wanted to get married and start a family, and she was living in the Manhattan. I was living back home, and I'd go in, like for a weekend, just fool around. And then no cell phones, like disappear, like, another month or so, show back up. And this went on for like a year until she finally like, what are we doing, bro? Like, I thought we loved each other and we were going to get our lives going and start a family. And I'm like, I can't. She goes, what do you mean you can't? I'm like, I can't. And she's like, why? And I just, like, obviously I can't tell her, like intimacy. I couldn't be intimate. I couldn't be open. I got secrets. How can you be open when you're carrying secrets? Transparency? No way. Now I'm an open book, but back then, forget it. And that was it. It's not like we had a big blow up fight. She just said, I gotta go a different way in life. Then you're hurting me too much by what we're doing here. I'm just a booty call for you. And I said, all right, I get it. And that would like just haunt me for the rest of my life. Like, like Dennis Pegg ruined my love affair, So Lisa and I break up, and I'm in my 20s, and I don't have her as like a grounding force, even if it was, once a month, to ground me. I just, I'm off on my own. And I had such an inferiority complex, self-loathing still. And, when you're a young boy and you're sexually assaulted and abused by an older male, it just messes with your ego. It messes with your confidence. It messes with your sexuality. And I felt the need that I had to prove myself to be a man. And I did that through just like nonstop, like one night stands. If I did have a relationship, they were usually really short. And like I could be the most fun boyfriend for a month that you ever had. And then after a month, you're like, whew, this never stops. Like, can we like, get a little more in depth and I'd be like, up, see ya. I'd just cut and run, and I did that all throughout my 20s. Like my 20s were just a nonstop pursuit of women. Like I had to prove to myself I was a man. And a girl, beautiful, beautiful girl that graduated with my brother. She had recently got divorced, and I remember trying to pick her up, and she'd be like, Clark, give it a break. You're just a player. She's like, I'm not into being played. I'm like, I'm not a player. She goes, oh my God, you're the definition of a player. Stop it. And I was like, and, but that's, my mind just told me, like, if we sleep with enough women will feel like a man. And it just added more trauma to me because, like, I'm hurting women all throughout that time. And I'm just like, when somebody catches a feeling for you and then you hurt them, it just, I'm just heaping more trauma onto myself. And at the end of my 20s, I just felt like a shell of a person. I was going through careers, I walked away from Wall Street after a couple of years. I walked away from flipping houses and doing construction after a couple of years. I walked away from a business. My father put up money for me to get involved in, tire retreading business. I walked away from every romance. Just, I never wanted to feel trapped again. Like being at Dennis Pegg's house, I felt trapped. I was like an animal in a snare. And I never wanted that. Like, I would get squirrely after a little time in a relationship. I'd get squirrely after a little time in a job, just be like, time to move on. And that's what I did all through my 20s, like just moved on. And my only pursuit in my 20s was partying and women. That was it. And I go into my 30s, I'm unemployed. My brother had a successful tire automotive center, and he wanted to open up another store. He's like, why don't you come work with me, and we'll open up another store. And I literally had nothing else going on. So I'm like, sure, whatever, you know? And so I started that, just figuring, you know, I'll do it for a little while and, you know, move on like I always do. And I also needed a new coping skill back then. So I started gambling. I went to Atlantic City and not knowing what I was doing, playing $5 hand blackjack, I won $1,700. I went back 2 weeks later playing $5 chips and won 2,200. And then I was like, maybe if I like studied this and learned what I was actually doing, maybe I could make more at this. And I took like the next 6 months, like just reading every book, practicing with multiple decks of cards in my room. The craps tables were always sounded so much fun. There was always hooting and hollering and yelling and screaming. So I'm like, I want to learn craps. So I taught myself craps, and I would practice with dice. And I went back after 6 months and just like started this unbelievable run. You know, I won 8,000 first time back. Then I won 17. Then third time back, I won 27,000. And then it just kept going from there. And that was my new drug. Like when I stepped through the doors of the casino and the sounds and the waitresses and the action and the drinks, like Dennis Pegg, like he got blocked at that door. He couldn't get through. And I got through that door and Dennis Pegg just evaporated into thin air. And it would take him out of my consciousness. And for the next like 4 or 5 years, I just gambled like nonstop. That was my new, instead of chasing, you know, I'm still chasing women, but not like with the pursuit I had in my 20s. Now I'm chasing gambling. And this is like every other weekend and every weekend. And I've got a briefcase in my room with hundreds of $1,000s in cash and chips. I would go down, I would take buddies down in a limo with me, and I would give them all chips to like cash in and give them a couple $100 for cashing in my chips for me, you know, so that I'm not getting hit with taxes. And I'm just loaded up with all this cash at home. And someone said to me, you know, you can make cash deposits in the bank as long as you keep them under 10,000. The IRS doesn't get notified. And I'm like, really? Nobody ever told me that there was also a law if you're trying to skirt the 10,000 thing by just putting it just under. So like, I think I'm cool. Like I'm going in with 9,800, 9,700, 95, like every week after week after week. And I come home one day, I don't know for how long I did this. I come home one day and in the mailbox is a gold embossed business card from a special investigator at the criminal division of the IRS. And on the back of the card, it said, Mr. Fredericks, call me immediately. And I'm like, oh. And they wanted to charge me with money laundering. And I got fully audited, had to show, you know, like every trip to casinos, where my starting money came from. Now, in you know, in my late 20s, I glanced over this, but my grandfather died when I was a senior in high school. My grandfather owned a dairy farm in our county which in the 1950s, the developers of a ski resort bought from him so they could put up what is now Mountain Creek, which back then was Great Gorge Vernon Valley Ski Resort. And his farm was at the base of this mountain, and they bought that from him. And he went to Naples, Florida, and retired there and bought a house right on the beach in Naples, Florida, on Vanderbilt Beach. And he died my senior year. And my grandmother didn't want to like move into some sort of retirement place. She's like, why would I leave this place, you know? And a guy next door was in a gay love affair, an older guy with a 27-year-old guy, and he broke it off. And the 27-year-old guy went to go kill him, and he wasn't home. He broke into the house. He wasn't there. He's enraged. He's, you know, like whether he was on drugs or alcohol, I don't know. But he's like, I'll go next door and kill the old lady next door. And he went next door to my grandparents' house, broke in, tortured her, tied her up, raped her, and killed her. And the police said to my father, no, you don't need to know the details. Like, let's just say she was tortured, raped, and murdered. That's more than enough for you to know. You don't need to know. So it had to be brutal and horrific. And that was a triggering event for me. Like, that just brought up all my trauma and abuse that I went through. And, you know, I remember just like spiraling, drinking heavily for a while, isolating from everybody. And so we all us grandkids inherited a little bit of money. That's what I, in my later 20s, started. That's what I used to start flipping houses. And then that was my seed money for gambling also. So I had to go all the way back to that for the IRS dude. And so it was a long drawn out affair, you know, to get out of money laundering, you know, charges. And he explained to me, you know, like, you know, there's a law about those who are trying to skirt the $10,000 thing. He goes, you know, you fell right into that. So I'm just,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm a dope, you know, who didn't know, you know, so forgive me, you know. So I didn't get charged, but it was a nightmare, you know, like getting audited, and like I had to get every receipt from the casinos for the dates I was there. I had to show, you know, I had to call them up, you know, like, can you print out something that I was in this room at this weekend and this weekend and this weekend and this weekend and this weekend. So, you know, like waiting for the weekend to arrive to go gamble, like you got that 5-day period, like during the week, like where like you're squirrely and your trauma's raising its head, and you know, you need, you know, like when you're uncomfortable and your trauma is there, you know, we want a quick fix, you know, like you become a chaser of that quick fix that'll take it away. You know, like there was no going in deep within myself. There was no examining my flaws and my character defects. It was just, I feel uncomfortable. I feel at ease. I gotta have something, whether it's going to be drugs, alcohol, gambling, women, something like that's going to take that away. And that's what I became a chaser of that, you know, just chasing to get rid of that uncomfortable feeling. And so now, like, I can't go the 5 days during the week, like feeling uncomfortable, you know. So the local shot and beer joint we would go to, the owner's like, hey, my liquor sales been he does sports betting. He's connected with guys from the city. You know what I'm saying to you. And I told him all about, my casinos winnings were because, it wasn't that I was going around bragging, but I would take friends with me and they'd be like, "Oh, hell, Clark's insane. He won $80,000. He won $50,000. He lost 50. I won $153,000 on one trip, and I was up way over that after, I was playing craps, like having, like 20 to 40,000 on a roll of dice.
Wow.
And after 3 losing hands, I'm like, all right, that's it, and I had 153 left. So I was up way like 250 plus. And like money just was irrelevant. It wasn't irrelevant, but it was meaningless. Like it's not like, it was just a tool for me to like outrun my trauma. Like I'm using gambling as my coping mechanism. I need money as the tool for that coping mechanism. And that's all it was good for. I did on one of my trips, I won 50,000 down there. And on the way home, I saw a Harley Davidson dealership. I pulled in, plopped down 21,000 in cash, and said I'd be back in a couple days to pick up a Heritage Springer. And when I got that bike, I had 2 buddies that rode, and the one guy was hooked up with a bunch of other guys that all had Harleys. And that just became, like they were all borderline alcoholics, and half of them did coke. And I was like, I fit right in with these dudes, So it just like, it just became a new source of distraction for my pain and trauma. Later on, I read a book on mindfulness and meditation. And I laugh because like back in those days, like if you told me, like, hey, you should really read this book on mindfulness, I would have spit in your face, Dalton, and slapped you and said, get out of here with that crap. What the hell's wrong with you? Mindfulness, And people are like, why didn't you ever talk about what happened to you? I'm like, the longer you go on without talking about it, the harder it is, because now your life takes on this persona, So I'm like, all right, I'm riding with a group of 12 to 20 Harley guys who are party animals. Half of them do coke. We're going to strip clubs. I'm supposed to pull in on my bike with 12 other guys at a strip club. When I pull into the parking lot, I reach into my pocket, I get a key out and a bag of coke, and I do a bump or two in the parking lot. And then as we're walking towards the front door of the place, I'm supposed to like just turn to everybody and be like, hey, by the way, I was raped by my Boy Scout leader when I was, 12 years old. It just there was never like, you're not having those in-depth conversations like you're buddies and you're tight. But you're not going into each other's trauma, you're just like keeping it at this level. You're not going down here to the trauma level. And so it never seemed like a good opportunity to ever break that mold I was in. I was in this mold of this wild, crazy party animal dude. And I just like accepted that's who I am, and I didn't relate it to what I went through. It's just like I'm a madman, So, so I start. I've got my Harley. I'm partying with these guys, riding with these guys, and I start sports betting with the mob through this local shot and beer joint. Within 6 months. And they knew, he told them my gambling history. And they gave me a no limit gambling thing and no ceiling. So it's not like, all right, if you bet up to 20,000, we cut you off. It was like, you can bet as much as you want on a game and as high as you want to go. And, I would have weeks where I won 20, 30, 40,000. And then towards the end of that 6-month run, it was losing, 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 losing. And before I knew it, I had 2 stock portfolios I had to drain to pay these guys. All that money in my suitcase was gone. And I had a losing week where I lost $20,000. And I called them up and I said, hey, I got to move some money around from my stock portfolios. I said, can you let this 20 ride for a week? For you, no problem. It would have been so much better if they just said, nah, you got to, once you get this paid off, we could, but no, they were like, yeah, for you, no problem. And so I go into this next week and I'm like, I have all this pressure on me. I've lost everything. I don't have $20,000 to pay that. So I've got to win that back. Plus I want to keep gambling. So I need to win above and beyond that 20. And I bet like an idiot and I'm taking high risk bets. And the end of the week, I'm now down $77,000 to the mob. And I knew it was over. And I just didn't know, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew it wasn't going to be good. I had never met anybody, like I had a code name and they were constantly turning their phone numbers over. So it'd be like, hey, next week when you call, you're calling this number. Next week when you call this number. And I call up and, you got to be a man. So like I can run from it, So I call up and I'm like, hey, I got a problem. The guy on the phone's like, yeah, what's up? I go, I don't have any money left to pay you guys. Like, I'm in the hole and, I don't know how to work this out, but I'm like tapped out. The guy's like, oh, that's not good, bro. I'll have somebody get back in touch with you. Make sure you answer your phone. I'm like, all right. And somebody calls back and just starts screaming what a degenerate piece of shit I am. And you're putting your life in danger. And you better come up with money from a family member, a friend, something. One thing they were big on was go rob a fucking bank. If you get away with it, great. You can pay us. If not, so what? You do 5-10 years. You're better off in there than being out here on the street with us. And this went on. It went on for months. And those were the worst. That was like the worst period of my life. Like it literally was just daily hell. I've got my shotgun in my pickup truck. I've got a baseball bat in my office. They're threatening me pretty much a daily basis. And I didn't know what to do. Like I wasn't going to go to the cops or anybody. That wasn't the type of dude I was. So I called Gamblers Anonymous. And the lady who answered the phone, I just told her like, hey, I'm in $77,000 hole to the mob and they're threatening my life and I don't really know what to do or how to handle it. She said, let me have somebody call you back. The head of Gamblers Anonymous in New Jersey back then was Ed Looney. And Ed Looney called me back within a half hour. And he's like, there's a meeting tomorrow night where it's a bunch of hardcore guys, some who had been mob guys and had bet with the mob, and I'll meet you there and we'll run your story by and come up with a plan for you. I was like, all right. So we did that. And they're like, you got to be a man and you got to make a payment plan to these guys. And they're going to fight and scream and kick that there's no way they're taking a payment plan on $77,000, but you got to stick to your guns and just, they're gonna call your family. I'm like, how are they gonna call my family? They have ways. They're going to find out who your family members are, and they're going to call them. So you got to go to your family and tell them this is your problem and you're taking care of it. Do not give these guys money. And so that was tough. Like nobody knew what I was doing. And sure enough, they called my father. They called my brother at his tire store. Like, you better come up with money for your brother. Like, he's a dead man. You can save his life. Like they said the same thing to my father. Like, your son's life is like in jeopardy. You want your son to die, or do you want to save him? You can save him by giving us money. And you get a phone call like that, and it scares the shit out of you. I tell people it's not like I had a death wish. It's not like I wanted to die, but you just get to the point where you're just like, fuck it. Like, fuck it, man. Like, whatever. And it's two different things. It's just like you get so beaten down. It's just like, whatever happens, happens, and that's, later on with drugs, that's how I got too. Like, we'll get to that, but you just, it's a scary place to be in when like you just don't care, like, of living or dying. And I've been in that spot a couple times in life, and so I make up this payment plan. They went through my whole finances, the guys at that meeting, and they're like, because you can't promise to pay more than what you can with what you have coming in and going out. So I could pay $500 a month, and they went absolutely ballistic, And the line that stands out is $500 a month doesn't even cover the juice on $77,000. Are you out of your friggin' mind? And the guy talking to me said, if I go to my boss and say he's willing to pay $500 on this $77,000 debt, you're putting my life in jeopardy. You could get me whacked for being that stupid to go to my boss with. And so that they would just harp on, like, you better get something from a family or a friend, or like, you really got to go start robbing banks. That was just harping on that. Like, dude, like, you're going to lose your life. And the Gambler Anonymous guys, they said all that. They're like, they're going to threaten your life. They're going to, go to your family, and you got to stick to your guns, that you're a man. You're not running away. You're not going to authorities. You want to handle this like a man. And the only way I can do that is to pay you guys a monthly payment plan. Like, you just got to stick to that. And I stuck to that for months. And the last phone call I got, the guy simply said, your time's run out. You're a fucking dead man. Click. And a couple months later, 2 months or so later, whatever it was, I'm at my brother's store, and his office manager's like, hey, Clark, you got a phone call on line 1. I go, who the hell's calling me here? Because I got the other store. He's like, I don't know. So I pick it up, and the guy's like, hello, this is Special Agent blah, blah, blah with the FBI. Am I talking to Clark? I'm like, yeah. He's like, Mr. Fredericks, there's something urgent I need to discuss with you. I'm going to meet you. This was on like a Monday, Tuesday. He goes, I'm going to meet you Thursday at your Newton store at 3 p.m. And I suggest you be there. And I'm like, whoa, bro. Like, you got to tell me what this is about. What's going on? He's like, I can't discuss anything over the phone, Mr. Fredericks. I'll see you Thursday at 3 p.m. Click. And he hangs up. And like, like I'm with my biker buddies, like, doing some coke. It's not like I'm buying any. I'm like, so I'm thinking like are they like trying to pinch one of the coke dealers? Like the FBI isn't going to get involved in me buying a gram or two. Like, it just, so like nothing made sense. Like, and I'm like having sleepless nights for the next 2 nights, like trying to come up with what this could be about. And so I went down to my truck like 2:30. I didn't want to be up in the office. I wanted to see who was coming. And I sat in my truck and, an obvious FBI guy pulled in, with the suit and looked the part with the aviator shades and all that. And I got out and I said, "Are you a special agent?" I can't remember his last name right now. And he said, "Yes, you're Mr. Fredericks." I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Were you waiting out here for me on purpose?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Smart." I said, "All right." I go, "Let's go upstairs." And we went up and I'm like, "So we're in person now. What the hell's this about?" And he's like, "Mr. Fredericks, I have to notify you that we have an informant within one of the major crime families, and that informant's relayed to us that there's a hit put out on your life for a gambling debt." And I was like, I'm like, "Yeah, I sort of known that." I'm like, "I've been getting threatened for quite a while." And, at the end of the conversation, he wanted me to wear wire. And I'm like, "No." I go, "I haven't gotten a phone call." I go, "The last phone call I got, they told me I was a dead man." I go, "But I haven't got any phone calls in a little period." And I go, "I definitely am not going to like compound my problems by being a rat and like wearing a wire for you guys. Absolutely not." And he gave me his card and he said, "This isn't going to go away. It's going to get a lot worse for you. And if you want help down the road, reach out to me." I said, "All right." And he left. And I had stashed a baggie of coke in my office desk. And I'm like, if I don't leave here in handcuffs, I am diving into this sucker. And as soon as he walked out, I locked the door and like just did the biggest rail I could. And I was like, holy smokes, man. And, so it's just like, like I should have had unlimited potential in life. I got a great college degree. I had great grades. And just everything is just, just spiraling downwards. I'm not progressing in life. I'm treading water and the water's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'm starting to sink down and down and down. And, so I've already had the criminal division of the IRS, reach out to me. Now I've had the FBI, and coming soon was Division of Homeland Security. So I've got all the major ones like like knocking on my door. So I saw a buddy, a couple of years down the road, 2 years. I wanted to get back into working out. I used to work out in my 20s, like all the time. And like got off track with the gambling and whatnot. And I ran into a buddy who was all pumped up on juice, and he gave me the website he was using to get orders in, and I placed a couple small orders, and they arrived, and then I placed a big one, and it didn't arrive, and I'm like, great. And then one day I go home to that mailbox again, and I pull out the mail, and there's a letter from Division of Homeland Security. I was like, oh boy. And I literally like started looking up and down the road in the woods. I just thought like the house was surrounded, and I go inside and I placed it on the table and I changed. I hadn't opened it yet. It was like poisonous. I didn't even want to like open it. And I poured a drink. I just sat there at the kitchen table, watching TV, drinking. And I poured another drink, and then I opened it up. And Basically, you get a one-time get-out-of-jail-free card, like for importing something like that. If you can come up with a prescription for these items, we will forward them to you. If not, if you don't have a prescription, we will dispose of them within 60 days. And should there be any further attempts by you to bring these items into the country, it's a 10-year prison sentence. So I'm like, all right. So I dodged that. So I never got arrested, but I was right on the edge there a lot of times. So I go. So that's my late 30s when that happened. I go into my 40s and just hit the skids with depression. Like I never knew that abuse survivors suffered from PTSD, and something triggered my PTSD. I'm not sure what, and just sunk down into quicksand. Just trying to get out of bed, trying to swing my legs off the bed. It was just, it was horrible. Just trying to go to work every day. And eventually I'm just like, I'm so beaten down, so distraught, so depressed. Then I'm like, maybe if I have a drink before work, that'll get me energized to get out of the house. So I started having a drink as soon as I would wake up, and then I'd pour a drink into my coffee mug for the ride to work. And that became my routine. And then I'm just so down all day long, just trying to get through work. So then I'm like, maybe if I just do a couple bumps of Coke, that'll energize me. So now I'm doing a couple bumps of Coke. Then I would feel, then I would feel like out of sorts. So then I'm like, talk to somebody about Xanax. So then I'm taking some Xanax and so I'm just doing this cocktail of stuff. And I was in the automotive industry with my brother. We're working on big truck tires and backhoe tires and loader tires. And I hurt my back, and I went to a doctor and got prescribed pain pills. And I loved them. It made me feel like Superman. And when the doctor wouldn't give me any more, I just went out on the street, and thus began a pain pill addiction for the next couple of years. I dated a girl who had a friend who was a pharmacist in Pennsylvania, and he would get us jars of 500 pain pills. At one point, he's like, why don't you get a jar of liquid Oxycontin, and she's like, my friend said we can get a liquid. I'm like, I'm not being responsible for because we would sell some too. I'm not selling liquid version of this shit to people and they OD. Selling a handful of pills is one thing, and then I don't trust myself with Coke and alcohol, that I'm not going to just keep the dropper going into my mouth in the middle of the night. I'm like, no way. I go, don't do that. But we were getting all these pills, and just, I would have 500 pills in my drawer and still not feel secure, because you build up a tolerance, and I'm taking up to 24 pills a day, so all right, 500 pills is 2 weeks worth, or so, and it's just, and this is, I'm living with this depression, using substances, beating myself into the ground, working, ball busting work every day, going right to the bar after work, and not, the gyms came and went, and uh, just living this tough, hard life and not addressing anything, not even putting pieces of the puzzle together. My first therapist said, Clark, in your 20s and 30s, did you concentrate on your abuse or what happened to you or correlate the abuse to how you were living? I had to think, and I'm like, no. I just figured I was this wild, crazy party animal dude, like I didn't equate it to Dennis Pegg. That he was obviously the driving force, but it's not like I sat there consciously, all right, I'm taking pain pills because of Dennis Pegg. All right, I'm gambling because of Dennis Pegg. I'm just feeling uncomfortable, and I need something to make me not feel uncomfortable. I need something to numb me. I need something to distance me from whatever is making me feel uncomfortable without equating what is actually making me feel uncomfortable. And so I'm living this way for a couple of years, depressed, taking substances, and one day I'm in a quick check deli getting a coffee, which we were just talking about quick check. That's a good segue into having a sip of coffee here real quick. And who comes into that deli but my abuser, Dennis Pegg? Now, I had seen Dennis Pegg over the years. It's not like I hadn't seen him since he raped me. I went into a bar one time with some buddies, and he was there. And he comes over to me and puts his arm on my shoulder. Hey, how are you? How's the family? How's everybody doing? And I'm just like I can't breathe. I don't know what's happening to me again. So I chug my beer and I tell my buddies, let's get out of here. They're like, we just got here. I took 2 sips out of this beer. I'm like, look, I'm driving. I'm going to another bar. You guys can stay or you can go with me. And they're like, all right, calm down a second. I'm like, I'll be outside waiting for you. You got 2 minutes. And so they all pound their beers and come out. They're like, what the hell's wrong with you, bro? I'm like, there's no chicks in there. Let's go find a bar that has chicks. I couldn't tell him my rapist is in there and just put his arm around me. So it's not like I never saw him, but I hadn't seen him in probably 10 years. And then here he comes in and he sees me. He's like, hey, Clark. I'm like, oh my God. And what was different this time is he had a young boy by his side about the age he raped me. And I hear that young boy say the name, call him the name he used to make me call him. And that just did it. That just ripped open that 30-year-old wound. And I went into a full-blown panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was going to faint. I thought I was going to pass out. I couldn't breathe. And I know this whack job is going to make his way over to me, and I just got to get out of here right now. I leave everything behind. I run out of there. We shoulder bump. He's like, where are you going, buddy? And my life just collapsed that day. That was it, man. It just fell apart. The depression I'd been forcing myself to go to work with every day, having that glass of alcohol in the morning to get me going and those bumps, I just couldn't do it. 1 month later, I got in a fight with my brother and I walked out and never looked back. And now I got free time. I've got addiction issues that are already there. And I got my abuse and Dennis Pegg in the forefront of my mind. And I don't know how to combat him to get him out of my mind. And I just start amping up drug use. And, the thing I always say in my story is Dennis Pegg broke my boundaries. He took my boundaries away from me by what he did to me. And I didn't know how to keep boundaries now. Like, we all set boundaries in our life. I'm sure you have boundaries, that you set. I would set them too, but they were meaningless. And I would just blow it. Like, drinking before work is obviously a boundary I had set for myself. And yeah, that's cocaine. If I did it, was a weekend drug, going out to the bars with some buddies and maybe you do some bumps. On the bike with the biker guys, pulled into a strip club, and you're doing some bumps. And obviously, doing bumps during work hours to get through the day, every day of the week, is a boundary I had set for myself that, poof, just vanished. And now with my pain pills, there was a period where, like I told you, I could have 500 and not feel really secure. My pain pills, like, were almost out, like down to like a handful. And I go to somebody and they're like, dude, what are you messing with pills for? They're like, so expensive. It's such a waste. I got some folds of dope on me. Like, and don't think you're better than me. You're doing the pharmaceutical version of opium. I'm doing the grown out in the fields version. So you're no better than me. And I'm like, hey, you got a point. Like, give me some folds. They're like, it's $5 for a fold. What the hell? What the hell are you spending? Back then it was $1 per milligram. You're getting an 80 milligram OxyContin. It's $80. People loved the 10 milligram yellow bananas, we call them. They were yellow Percocets because you could crush them up and snort them. Everybody wanted to snort their pain pills because it would hit you, boom. So I start doing heroin. I swore I would never do heroin. Like, even like throughout my whole life, like, that's just, a Skid Row drug, a New York City homeless person drug. It's not a guy who's been to college, has a great education drug. And yet drugs don't care who they attack, like how many music stars or actors or actresses have died of drug overdoses. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, drugs lie to you. And I just like withdrawal from opiates. It's like the flu times 1,000. It's just horrible, but it's also psychological. Like if you can avoid it, like if I have a way to avoid the flu times 1,000, like I'm going to avoid the flu times 1,000. I'm going to keep doing the thing that will prevent me from feeling like that. It becomes really psychological. So I didn't, like I would have like lower dose levels of pills, like 750 milligram Vicodins or something. And like I would have to take so many of them. Like, so if I didn't take enough, like my legs would get so uncomfortable and I'd be in bed having to shake my legs like a maniac. Like I just couldn't sit still. Like, and I'd be somewhere and my legs are just going. I couldn't stop my legs from going. And then your nose is running. You're like, why is my nose running? And I'm like, oh, my back. Oh my God, my back is killing me. Like, so like, and not really putting two and two together that this is from not having enough in me. Like, because I'm built up such a tolerance now. So I want to avoid that. So I start doing dope. Another boundary, just meaningless to me. And I was doing all those substances. I'm like becoming a broken person. And I had an incident with earlier in my like mid 30s, late 30s, where a guy burned me on a motorcycle deal. I went to have a custom bike built. I traded in my Harley to him. I was going to get this completely tricked out bike, and he took my Harley. He took my loan money, and he did this to a whole bunch of other people. And in the middle of the night, shut his doors, cleaned his shop out, and just got burnt on the deal. And I saw him one night in a Italian restaurant I went to. And I went up to his table. He was at a table with his family, and leaned into him and told him he was a scumbag piece of crap, and when are you going to make right on what you did to me? And he was this big tattooed biker guy in a biker gang, and he told me to go F off. And he's like, how dare you do this when I'm out with my family? And I'm like, step outside then. Let's go outside. Like, this guy, he didn't scare me. He didn't intimidate me. I didn't care. Like, and this guy represented Pegg to me. Like, because he raped me in a different way. He raped me with this stealing my motorcycle, screwing me on the loan. And it was a different type of abuse. But I equate, like, not consciously, but subconsciously, it was like, this is Pegg. I got abused by this guy. And I'm like, let's go outside, man. And he goes, get the fuck out of here. And I'm like, out of respect for your family, I'm going to leave. But I go, this isn't over between us. You got to make right by this. He's like, fuck you. And I left. And I was meeting a friend at my house who I had lent money to. And he was dropping off power washing equipment. He was going to power wash the cedar siding and then stain it. And I picked up a bottle of wine on the way home. I'd been out all day drinking and doing coke and popping Xanax. And I met him at the house. All my friends knew about this bike deal that had gone sour. And I told him I just ran into the guy. Like, it's been years, and I just ran into the guy. And he's like, that prick's got to be number one on your hit list. And before I could, like, stop the words coming out of my mouth, I was just so beaten down with life and with the drugs and with pain, and just, I just couldn't keep my secret in any longer. Like, and I had seen Pegg. He's at the forefront of my mind. My wounds are all ripped open. And my buddy says, that biker guy's got to be number one on your hit list. And I'm like, actually, he's number two. The piece of garbage that raped me as a kid is number one. And there it's out. Like, never told anybody. Couldn't tell my girlfriend in college. Couldn't tell my father. I didn't even mention this. My father sat me down multiple times when I was a kid to say he was hearing rumors about Dennis Pegg and wanted to know if he had ever touched me. And I just couldn't bring myself to tell him. I said, no, Daddy, never touched me. And so here I let it out to my friend. And my friend's like, who is he? Where's he live? I'm like, he used to live 2 minutes from here. And I decide, let's go confront him. Like, ever since I saw him with that young boy in that deli, it just was haunting me, because I heard that nickname, and he used to make me call him that nickname. And I couldn't let go of the fact that he was still molesting boys 30 years later. And, another reason why I never spoke up is, like, my father came to me that there was rumors he was taking young male inmates home from the jail to his house to mentor them. And in the middle of the night, he's attacking them. And they're running out of his house in the middle of the night in little town of Stillwater, hitchhiking, and residents are picking these hitchhikers up. And they're like, this guy just pounced on me in the middle of the night, like pulling my pants down, trying to rape me. And it spread like wildfire. And my father heard this and asked me about it. And I was like, no, Dad. And then another a lady from our hometown of Stillwater told my dad that her son was raped by Dennis, and that son was a classmate of mine. My father told me who it was. And he asked me again, like, did Dennis ever touch you? And before you answer, I just want you to know, this doesn't go any further than you and I. I'm never going to make you go to the police. You won't have to worry about testifying in court. You just tell me if he's touched you, and I'll go handle Dennis myself. So, like, I equated that to my father saying, I'll go kill Dennis. Like, why wouldn't you? And like, that was too much weight. Like, do you want to send your father into a death mission? Like, either to kill somebody or possibly be killed? Like, I don't want that weight on me. I've got enough trauma already, as this little 13, 14-year-old kid whose father's saying, just say the word and I'm going to go kill somebody. So, like, I just said, no, Dad, he's never touched me. And so here we are. And, back then my father told me my classmate had filed charges against him. He's like, yeah, his mother told me, they filed charges. So I'm waiting for Dennis to get arrested. You can't be a lieutenant in the jail taking inmates home, trying to rape them in the middle of the night, and nothing happened to you. My classmate has filed charges against him. I'm waiting for my father to say, Dennis going to jail for raping your classmate, and that never happened. So I just thought he was untouchable because he was law enforcement. Like, he's covered. So why come forward? The one time I came forward and let my pain out with the teacher, nothing happened. So, like, I'm supposed to think this time it will, when all these other things are going on and nothing's happened. And so I'm haunted by that kid in that deli. And I'm like, it's time to go confront this guy. And this guy had retired, but he was the firearms instructor for our county and for Morris County. So everybody in law enforcement has to get recertified yearly. They got to go to him to get recertified to carry a firearm. This guy's a firearm nut. And I'm like, this guy's, like, going to be loaded to the hills. So I'm like, I go, take a steak knife with you. And I go, and I went, like, unconsciously, like, grabbed my Boy Scout knife that he taught me how to sharpen to get a perfect blade on. Like, as a young boy at Christmas one year, he bought me a whetstone kit and taught me how to sharpen my Boy Scout hunting knife. And I kept that thing razor sharp all these years. And that's what I grabbed to go to his house with. Irony, whatever. Karma. This guy's got karmic debt out the wazoo, and it needs to be paid. And it's not like he and my buddy and I devised any sort of scheme. It's not like we sat there and, like, all right, we're going to go, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, I don't even know if this guy still lived there. Like, probably, like, because he's still in the area, but he's got a long driveway. We park halfway up the driveway. I run up, and there he is. Front door's open, screen door's shut, sitting watching TV, and just, like, full-blown panic attack. This is the first time back at that house since he raped me. And just like the way my fingers would dig into that wooden chair when he was performing oral sex on me, like, everything is just, like, getting rigor mortis in me. And before I could completely freeze, I walk up to the door, I rip it open, I break the hinge. And this is the part, people reach out to me all the time and want to go confront their abuser. Like, whether not to do what's going to happen in a minute in the story, but just to confront their abuser. I'm like, don't bother. Like, you will never get them to apologize. They'll never let that guard down. They just can't. here I am, a rape victim of his, who he beat a dog probably to death in front of me to keep my silence, standing in your doorway at 9:30 at night with a knife in his hand. And what he said to me next is like what put me over the edge. He looks over his shoulder and calmly says, "Hey, how are you?" And like, it seemed like the most bizarre thing at that moment. Like, drop to your knees and be like, "Dude, I am so sorry. I know why you're here. Come in, let's talk. I'm sick. I violated you. I broke your trust. I can only imagine the damage I've done to you. Let's talk. Let me apologize. Let me make amends." Like do that. But no, they can't. They cannot let that guard down. And it's just that nonchalant, carefree attitude of, "Hey, how are you?" And I've got all this rage and hatred towards this prick from since Jeff committed suicide. And it's been growing and building and building. And I'll go into the face and the voice I used in his doorway right now. I'll take myself back in time for a split second here, so your audience and you can feel and see the rage and anger and hatred I had for this animal at that moment in his doorway. So he goes, "Hey, how are you?" And I go, "Hey, how am I, motherfucker? Let me show you how the fuck I am." Try not to do that often because I go instantly back to that. And I raced across his living room. He stood up and I started swinging at him with the knife. He started punching me. At one point, when he connected with a square shot to my jaw, I started falling down. I grabbed his shirt to like keep myself up. And I screamed, "You motherfucker." And I took the knife and I went to stab him and I put it right through my fist this way. And it came out and into his chest. And I pulled it out and my hand was useless. Like, some of my fingers are still, I severed the tendons and ligaments. And so this fight continues on. And at one point he slips. We're both bleeding heavily. And he falls down and he's sort of propped up against a wall. And I turn and my buddy's standing in the doorway. And I turn back to Dennis Pegg and I'm down looking at him in the eye. And I go, "It's not so fun raping little boys now, is it?" And I slit his throat. And I turned to my buddy. I wanted to be alone for a minute. I said, go get your van and bring it up here." And he left. And I took another look at Peg and I walked over to the bedroom he raped me in and I spit on the bed that he raped me on. And the answer is no. Everybody says, you had to feel great. You had to feel fantastic, slaying the monster that ruined your life. No, like, to kill somebody, it hurts your soul. It's not like something to be joyful about at the end. It was brutal. It was horrific. There's a guy there with his neck split wide open. There's me with blood gushing out of my hand. There was nothing to be joyful about at that moment. And I knew my life was over. Like, I just knew I was done. You can't go walking into a hospital with this wound I got and be like, "Yeah, I was cutting a steak and I drove a knife through my hand." I just knew that was going to be my downfall. But what I did at that moment, which is honorable, is stop a lifelong predator from ever harming another child. Nobody else was stopping this guy. The police, prosecutors, the sheriff's department, nobody. Like the people in the town with the rumors swirling about him, nobody gathered their torches and pitchfork and, went marching to the monster's house. He just was allowed to carry on for 45 years raping boys. Like, that can't be. So I stopped him so he can never hurt another child. Am I saying killing him is the answer? No, I am not. And I'm telling you right now, it did not heal me. Like, you don't heal from trauma by adding more trauma. Like, that's not how you heal trauma. You heal trauma by addressing it, by getting therapy, by reading books, by meditating, by eating healthy, by getting clean and sober, by walking and repeating a mantra, by getting faith, by praying to God, by all other things other than committing murder. And what you do by murdering that piece of garbage is you let them have control over you. Because now if I go to prison for life, or the next person goes to prison for life, that animal is controlling you from the grave. They're in control of your destiny. And you can't allow that. That's the sinful part, is you, at some point in time, this is valuable real estate. I gave Dennis Pegg ownership of this real estate for way too long. And every other abuse victim does too. This is prime real estate. You can't allow your abuser to control this. And that's what we do. And if you go do what I did and you go to life in prison, that piece of crap is controlling you from the time you were a child all the way to your grave. That's not healing. Oh, man. And that's the part that eventually dawned on me. Like I got arrested the next day. And I'm like, oh, my life is over. Like, I allowed this animal from age 6, when he first touched me, to now it's going to be to my death to control my life. Like, and that just made me sick that I gave him that power over me. And that's why I tell people, you can't give them that power. Due to circumstances, my house was surrounded the next day. I mean, we don't need to go into it. I was ordered out of my house, spread eagled on my front lawn, taken away to state police barracks. In the barracks there, a lieutenant came in. He was in charge of the CSI team that was just at Pegg's house. And from there, he came to the barracks. And he came in, Lieutenant Howie Ryan. He's like, I just wrapped up the crime scene at Pegg's. And he's like, I want you and I to be able to have a conversation. I'm not taking notes. I don't have a recorder. This room isn't bugged. It's just you and me. And he goes, first off, I want to tell you I'm sorry for whatever you went through as a child. I've heard rumors about this guy. We all have heard rumors about him. But I can't go arrest somebody on rumors. I need victims. I need cold, hard facts. And whatever he did to you and every other victim prevented us from ever arresting him. And I'm sorry about that. And he left. And at first I felt great. And then it just got to like anger. Like the state police knew about this guy. Like everybody knew about him. And yet now I just flushed my life away to stop this monster. Nobody else would stop this guy. I had to be the one. And then the anger, I just said, screw it. What's it matter? It's over anyway. My life is done. I just forfeited the whole rest of my life. It's shot. It's history, man. And Howie came back in and he said, look, he's like, this isn't a whodunit. He's like, his line was, I've got you 6 ways to Sunday. He goes, your blood's everywhere. You've got a wound. He goes, when we have your blood analyzed, it's going to be your DNA, I'm sure. He goes, so that part is over. He goes, but it doesn't mean your life is over. And he goes, you could get a defense and get out of this without doing too much time. That'll have to be seen. He goes, but right now I have detectives, my own detectives, in a room with detectives from the prosecutor's office. And you're going to get taken in there to be interrogated. And if you go in there and open your mouth about whatever did or didn't occur, he goes, you could sink the whole rest of your life. He goes, we have enough evidence that you don't need to go in there and say a word. So I'm telling you, I want you to go in there and exercise your Fifth Amendment rights and say you refuse to speak without a lawyer. And I say to him, but I don't have a lawyer. And he goes, yes, you do. I go, what do you mean? He goes, I'm going to walk out of here and I'm going to place a call to George Daggett. And I'm going to tell him to fax over a client sheet for you. And he's going to be representing you. And you're going to go in there and you're going to say, I refuse to speak without George Daggett, my attorney. And that's going to be the end of it. And Howie left the room, called George Daggett on his cell phone, said, George, I got somebody at the Fredericks here that you need to represent. I need you to send over a client agreement immediately. Fax it over right away. And he's like, what's the name? I'm like, Clark Fredericks. And he goes, what's he arrested for? He goes, murder. And George is like, all right, you got it. And he did that. X amount of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, whatever it was, I'm taken into the interrogation room. And they sit me down and like, Clark, let's talk about that wound you have. Let's talk about what's occurred. Fill us in on what's going on here. And I'm like, I refuse to speak without my attorney, George Daggett. And they're like, George Daggett, huh? And they're like, is that really how you want to play this? And I'm like, that's how I want to play this. And they're like, all right, you're going to regret this. And they take me back to the holding cell and they come out and they go to Howie. How the fuck did he get George Daggett? George Daggett was the bane of the prosecutor's office. So that was like a little jab to the detectives from the prosecutor's office. State police and prosecutors in New Jersey investigate crime simultaneously. Like, it should be separate. But their prosecutors are allowed to be on crime scenes as the state police are doing their job. So the state police hate that. So here they're now interrogating people together, and they hate that. So Howie gave him a little zinger because George is the bane of existence for the prosecutor's office. And so they come out and they're like, how the fuck did Fredericks get George Daggett? He's like, I called him. He requested him. You called him for him. I'm like, yeah, he has a right to an attorney. He has a right to remain silent. I didn't do anything wrong. They're like, this stinks, Howie. This is bullshit. They got testy with him. It's like, tough shit. It is what it is. And, I got to believe that Howie was an angel put into my life to, because at that point I was so beaten down, I just wouldn't have cared. Like, just be like, yeah, this piece of garbage raped me. He did this to me. He's a scumbag. I did this. This is exactly how it went down. F it. My life's over anyway. What the hell's it matter? I had to go get emergency hand surgery. They took me right from the barracks to the hospital. from the hospital, I ended up in the county jail where Dennis Pegg had worked his whole career as first a sheriff's officer, then a sergeant, then a lieutenant, where he's taking inmates home, waiting out in the parking lot for their release to take them home to mentor them. Nothing was ever done about that, where he's pouncing on them when he gets them home. And I thought for sure I'd get beaten to death. Like, he never got charged back in the day. I was well aware of this from what my father said. And I just thought, like, they're going to take me into some coat closet, and I'm going to get the beating of a lifetime. And they put me in a suicide cell with a camera. And first time the door opened, a guard came in, and I'm like, here it goes, like, get ready. And he's like, I'm just doing my cell check. And he's like, look, man, keep your mouth shut. He goes, don't talk to any guards here or anybody. He goes, a lot of stuff swirling outside right now. Just let it play out. I'm like, all right. Next time there's a cell check, guard comes in. How you holding up? I'm like, all right. I'm like, like, when are these guys gonna start beating me? And he says the same thing. Like, I don't know exactly what happened to you, but I'm hearing rumors about this guy, and I'm sorry for whatever happened to you. Another day goes by, another guy comes in. He's like, can I get you anything? I'm like, can I get you anything? I'm like, are you allowed a pillow in the suicide cell? He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'll be back with one. He comes back with 2 pillows. I'm like, well, where's this beating, like on day 3, this girl I had dated in my late 30s into my 40s, this girl, Jamie, her son-in-law worked as a jail guard there. And like, I knew him well, and he comes in, and he's like, my man, how are you? I'm like, pretty shitty, bro. He's like, yeah, I can only imagine, man. And I said to him, I go, am I viewed as a monster in the community? He goes, are you fucking kidding me? He goes, Pegg's the monster. Everybody wants to know why he was still roaming the streets. Like, he goes, listen, man, somebody has already set up a free Clark website on a page on Facebook. And he's like, they're selling bumper stickers already. He's like, you should see all the cars like with bumper stickers, free Clark on them already. He goes, you're not the monster in this. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, you gotta hang in there, bro. He's like, this is far from over. He's like, stay strong. I'm like, all right. And so they kept me for 4 weeks, 4 weeks in the suicide cell, because they didn't know what to do with me. And God forbid, like, if I show up dead in the same jail that Pegg had worked at, like, boy, would that have been a lawsuit. So they kept me in there. Then they put me in an isolation cell by myself because I had a cast on. So they said I couldn't be in general population until the cast came off. So I was in there for another 3-4 weeks. And I finally got put in the general population. And I'm just, like, miserable. Like, just suicidal fantasies are, like, in my head all the time. My mind is just like a mix of the rape, the murder, and a life sentence. That was it. Backwards, rape, murder. Forwards, life sentence. Back, and it was just like that all day long, like nonstop. Like, I'm gonna do life. I'm gonna do life. Oh my God, the murder. Oh my God, the murder's playing in my mind. The rape's in my mind. All the abuse is like just playing from the first time he touched me is just playing in my mind. And I got to a point where I just said one day to my empty cell, like, God, you have to help me either kill myself or heal myself. just can't spend another day feeling like this. And my story was like worldwide, nationwide, front page of the LA Times, Baltimore Sun, and New York Post, UK, Daily Mail, in Australia, like all over. And I got books sent to me like from all over the country. My mother had commissary money sent to her. And I just said that out loud. You got to help me kill myself or heal myself. I can't go on like this. And I heard an internal voice saying, pick up one of these books and start reading. And you can only have so many books in your cell. I had books you get a locker downstairs, for people that get arrested and are going to be released, so here's your stuff back to you. So I would just send books to my locker, and they're like, your locker's filled with books. So I'd put them in other cells when they would come. And so I look at the books in my cell, and there's a little tiny book, Man's Search for Meaning. And I'm like, all right, I'll start with that one. It's a small book. And it's by Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. And it's got so many great lines in it. But, one that really stood out is when you're faced with a situation you cannot change, you are challenged to change yourself. So like my situation wasn't going to change. I'm facing life. It's like I got to change myself. I got to change my mindset to adapt to this environment, or else I got to find a way to kill myself. So, and then I just like that first year I was locked up, I was a mess, like just a suicidal fantasy, depressed, anxiety-ridden, shell-shocked disaster. And I took it out by sitting in my cell, buying crap food off a commissary, and reading. Like I read nonstop. And every year you're in there, they do like a mini physical on you. After my first year, they took me down to the nurses' station, and I had put on almost 60 pounds of weight in 1 year. Like my lawyer even said to me at one point, he came for a visit after that first year. And he's like, dude, you're a fat fuck. He's like, I'm worried you won't even survive to a trial. I was so swollen with edema that because of my open heart surgery, they thought my heart was failing, and they didn't want me to die on their dime. So they sent me to a cardiologist. So they had to take me shackled, feet shackled, hands shackled, orange one-piece jumpsuit, guard on each arm, into the doctor's office, filled waiting room. And it was so embarrassing, man. Oh. That guy is still my cardiologist to this day. I figured, why not? Let's go. I went in there as an inmate. I want to go back to like correct the score as a free man. So he's still my my cardiologist.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and oh my God, there was all these old people in the office waiting room when I walked in, and the nurse, the lady you check in with, her eyes were like huge, and she's like, hold on 1 second. And she went and they opened the door, right? Here's 20 people waiting to get in. They're like, okay, Mr. Fredericks, come right in, So they took me right in. They didn't want me out in the waiting room. And the one guard has, what is it, narcolepsy? When you fall asleep. And he's out cold in the waiting room. And I go to the other guy. I go, what's up with him? Oh, he's got narcolepsy. So I go, all I got to do is get past you, and I can get out of here. He's like, have at it, man. Give it a shot. We're just joking around.
Prison guard with narcolepsy, huh?
Yeah. So it turned out my heart wasn't failing. I was just a fat fuck. So So they brought in to their credit, they brought in a physical therapist to work with my hand and getting some mobility back. And sometime after that year period, he's like, "You're cleared." He's like, "There's nothing more I can do." He's like, "You can't re-injure anything." He's like, "So if you want to start doing push-ups or whatever," he's like, "It may be stiff, it may hurt a little." He goes, "But it's fine to use." I'm like, "All right." And dude, I literally started off because of the weight I was on, because of my hand. The hurt back I had when I started the pain pills. Like, I'm sleeping on a metal bunk with a inch thick mattress. So my back's shot, and I could literally do two push-ups. That's it. So I would do 2 push-ups. I would take a breather and try to do 2 more. That was how I started, man. And I worked my way up to 100 push-ups, worked my way up to 300 push-ups, worked my way up to 500 push-ups a day. And when I was in prison, I was doing 1,000 push-ups a day. So for people that are out there, like, if you're overweight, if you're struggling physically, mentally, exercise is the best thing for anxiety and depression. And Rome isn't built in a day. Like, I could do 2 push-ups, man, 2. So if that's what you can do, if you can do 1, start with 1. And over the course of a couple of years, you'll be doing hundreds of them. So you just got to start. So now I'm devoting myself to healing. I'm reading all these self-help books. I read this book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This was that mindfulness book that if young Dalton had come to me in my cocaine biker days and said, "Clark, here's The Power of Now. I really think this will change your life," I would have slapped you so hard. But now I was like a sponge absorbing everything in it. Like, I would read 10 pages, reread it, like, just absorb it. It taught you how to take back control of your mind, to be the police of your thoughts. Because my thoughts were killing me, man. And also, when I grew up as an acolyte in the Episcopal Church as a young boy. When the rape happened, and God wasn't there to strike down the devil, I gave up on faith. I weaseled out of it from my mother taking me. I just told her I wasn't into it. I don't want to go anymore. And after hounding her long enough, she's like, "All right, you don't have to go." And my faith from 12, when I abandoned it, to now, would just be getting in risky situations with the mob guys, with drug deals, being in places and towns I shouldn't be, and being like, "God, you owe me. You better get me through this." And I signed up for Bible study. I could not pray. Like, when I tried to pray in jail, my mind instantly went to like sexual images, the rape. Like, I had flooded my mind for years with pornography. Like, coke is like an erotic stimulant in your brain. Like, it just triggers something sexual and just like, lowers your inhibitions and like just makes you look at pornography like for hours on end doing lines. Like, the first time I did that, I stayed up all night, like, looking at porn and doing lines and like cranking off like a monkey in a zoo. And like, I said something to one of my buddies who does coke. He's like, "Yeah, I do that too." Like, I'll just watch porn all night long and do coke. And I'm like, huh. And I said it to somebody else. They're like, "Oh yeah, I do that all the time." I'm like, huh. So like, for this whole section of my life, I got arrested at 46. I am not putting anything beautiful, healthy, clean, magical, spiritual, enlightening into my being from 6 to 46. I'm putting in crap. I'm filling this machine with garbage. Sex, drugs, alcohol, anger, rage, hatred, self-loathing, self-harming, pornography, just garbage. That's all that's going into this system. And it has been for years and decades. And now I want to try to like, I can't have this darkness in me, like I want to get rid of that dark cloud in me, and I can't pray, and it's making me insane. And I signed up for Bible study, and I'm just convinced. My mind said, this guy's going to be some right-wing fanatic, wagging his finger at you, what an evil sinner you are for doing what you did. And I'm like, if this guy says one wrong word to me, I'll have the guards get me back to my cell instantly. And so I positioned myself to be the last in line. 2 elevators full of us, went down to Bible study. And the guy's shaking hands. He's smiling, laughing, hugging people. And I'm just sitting back there like fuming, you phony baloney. Ugh, ugh. And finally I go up, and Brother Bob puts me into a hug. I'm like stiff as a board. He's hugging me, and he whispers. Now, last time I got whispered in my ear when I was in a bear hug like that, it was 1 more minute. Brother Bob whispers, I've been praying for you, and my congregation has been praying for you. And I pull away from him. I go, what are you talking about? I go, do you know who I am? He goes, I know who you are. I read the papers. I see you in the paper all the time. And I'm like, really? You've been praying for me? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, thank you. And that sort of like calmed me a little, because I was ready for like a fest. I was like ready for a brawl, man. And he went into like, especially people online, the internet trolls, the atheists, they've like torn me up over faith. And, like, where was your God when you got raped? And that's what I thought as a kid. Where was my God when I got raped? So we want God to be Superman, Batman, the superhero. The train's about to go off the tracks, and God puts it back on the tracks. There's about to be a collision, and we want God to separate the collision. And there's about to be a rape, and we want God to stop the rape. Well, if God stops every negative thing, then we're just puppets on his string. Like, why even have life? Like, he's just up there. What do we think he's up there? Like, oops, plane's about to crash. Let me put some air under it. And I had that same thought process my whole life. Like, and God, if God wasn't the superhero saving the day, then like, what good is he? And Brother Bob went into, we have free will. You can use your free will for good or evil. The person next to you can use their free will for good or evil. And good things or bad things can happen to you if somebody's using their free will for evil, and you're vulnerable. And that just allowed that dividing barrier between me and God to evaporate. And that night I was able to go up to my cell and pray. And that was the start of my faith journey. And for those of you who don't have faith, who are atheists, whatever, that's fine. Like, faith allowed light into my being where it was filled with darkness. So if that's what it did for me, why would you not want me to have light? And I'm just trying to change the anger, the hate, the rage, the self-loathing into light, love, peace, and that's what it's done. And I got sentenced, sat in the county jail for 3.5 years. I got sentenced to a 5-year prison sentence. I was facing 30 to life. And after 3 years, they offered me a plea deal to second-degree manslaughter. A lot of victims came forward. They uncovered a lot of crap on Dennis Pegg. He'd gotten out from under multiple cases involving young boys. That one involving my classmate where the mother told my father, he raped Dennis and we filed charges. Well, she was a waitress working the graveyard shift, and he would sit in there in the middle of the night alone with her and be like, you're going to pull those charges or I'm going to kill your son and I'm going to kill you. And this went on, and then they eventually dropped the charges. So they uncovered all these cases. He got out from under, and they gave me a plea deal. I accepted it. And when I went for sentencing, the court was overpacked. They opened up another courtroom, filled that. They had people in the hallway, people out on the steps of the courthouse, in the parking lot. And, maybe my community had some survivor's guilt, that everybody had a story about Dennis Pegg. Everybody knew. And maybe it was, some of that survivor's guilt that he had such a long reign of terror that everybody showed up to support me. And I got sentenced to the minimum. Second-degree manslaughter carries 5 to 10. I got a 5-year sentence. And I got shipped off to Northern State Prison in Newark, not too far from us here. And my very first day there, I'm all out of sorts. And a therapist comes. Let me take you into arriving at Northern State Prison. All right. A transport van is like the worst experience in the world to be. They've got the inside of these things at an angle. So like you're on these bench seats on each side of like a plumber's van. And you can't lean back because they got it angled. So like you gotta be leaning like this. And so, and your back's killing you, and they're driving like maniacs. You're getting bounced around, and I don't have a seatbelt on, and it's a horrible experience. And I arrive at Northern State, and I've got to get checked in. And the guy's going through my paperwork, and he goes to me. He sees, I have murder charge, and he goes, what's your gang name? And I go, I don't have a gang name. And he goes, you're here for murder. Now, the prosecutor screwed up my paperwork and never changed it to manslaughter. So it said murder. He goes, you're here for murder, and you're going to tell me you don't have a gang name. I go, I don't have a gang name. He goes, what the fuck's your alias then? I go, I don't have an alias. And he slams his fist down. He's like, look, man, I'm not going through this with you. Don't fuck with me. What's your gang name? What's your alias? What's your nickname? I go, I'm from rural Sussex County, New Jersey. There's no gangs up there that I know of. I'm like, I'm not a gang affiliate. I don't have a nickname. I don't know what to tell you. He's just like, you motherfucker, with like just saying curses at me as he's like, so he's all friggin' pissed off. Then you gotta sit on this chair that x-rays your ass to make sure you don't have something boofed up there. And then like in the jail, you were escorted everywhere. Here, they don't escort you. He's like, you're going to be in C unit. Go to C unit, and the guard there will tell you what cell you're in. And I'm like, how do I get to C unit? He goes, go down the hallway and then go out of the building and just follow the path to C unit. I'm like, all right. So I go I open the door, I go down, and there's 2 doors, and they're shut. and I hit a button and it doesn't open. And I'm like, now what? And I'm like, there's a camera up there, and I'm just waving and waving and waving and nothing. And like I'm there for I don't know how long. And the guy comes up, the same guy comes over to the house. What the fuck are you doing there? I'm like, I don't know how to get through the door. He's like, there's a button right there. I go, I hit it. He goes, hit it like a fucking man, you sissy. And I'm like, boom. And it fucking opened. I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, welcome to hell.
Yeah.
Like, so if you want to do what I did, prison is absolute hell. Like, you think your life is bad now with your trauma? Let's take your trauma, and multiply 100, 1,000, whatever percent. It's going to be, you're still going to have that trauma, and now you're in this hell setting. Like, heal from your trauma, for crying out loud. Like, I can't stress that enough. Doing what I did will not heal you. And now you're going to be in hell with the same trauma, getting more trauma. So my very first day there, a therapist comes to my cell. She goes, I watched your case play out over the news. And she goes, I just saw your name come across my computer. I can't believe you're here. And she goes, will you do therapy with me? I'm like, absolutely. And so I had to go to prison to get my first therapy session. And then she asked me to join a group therapy class for childhood trauma. That's the one where I mentioned earlier, where she brought up playing with fire, arsonists, shoplifting, and every hand went up. Want to take a breather?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Go ahead.
I thought you might.
No, I've been making some notes. There's things that I want to ask you. That might be like a good place to take a pause though, because so first of all, dude, I just want to thank you for going into that detail in the beginning of your story about everything that happened when you were a kid. Thank you for going back to Pegg's house that night for us and for the benefit of someone that's watching this, because I can't imagine it's fun to go back there. So thank you. And dude, like this, I'm getting emotional about it. Like not necessarily like, I just, I feel for that kid, man. And like the system failed you. It did. And he had as long of a reign of terror as he did, and you had to be the guy to put an end to it, and no one came to that kid's rescue. So like I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. And you're not the only one. There's plenty of people that have this experience, but like you've done the work, and we'll talk about the healing and what that takes, because I want other people to be able to figure that out too. But like for that kid, man, like I'm sorry, and thank you for reliving it in here with us.
Yeah, I was a grown man, but I was really, you get stuck at your trauma age, and I was really a 12-year-old kid. Like I didn't progress in life. I didn't get into a career. I didn't get into a family. I just got vices and numbed myself and tried to cope any way I could. Just like that uncomfortable feeling, like I told you, just feeling uncomfortable, feeling at unease, and just trying to make that go away as quick as possible.
Yeah. So I want to get into therapy because that's where we left off. But you mentioned The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which I tried to read like years ago, and it was too dense for me. I couldn't get through it. So it's a tough book. But what stood out about it to me is you mentioned that it helped you control your thoughts and sort of be the police of your own mind, as you said. And that honestly, the reason I bring it up is because for me, like I've had a really tough time with that specific thing over the past couple months. I think things happen in people's lives. And what are some, like what did you learn from that book in terms of like how to manage your thoughts? And
well, it's called ruminating, where you get on spin cycle, and like abuse victims, I mean, not saying that anybody can't do it. Like you're saying, like anything could anything that you have coming up, maybe that's giving you anxiety. You get into that spin cycle and you ruminate. And like sitting on your couch for hours, abuse victims are like, this is like our pastime, is to just sit and ruminate on the abuse, and then ruminate on all the stupid ways we've lived trying to cope with the abuse. And like, we're constantly just beating ourselves up, re-traumatizing ourselves, and so one, mindfulness, so that term mindfulness, so you have to break, policing your thoughts. When you catch yourself going into that spin cycle, you got to break it. So get up, start exercising. Just, you find yourself ruminating, go for a walk and repeat a mantra. You need to keep your mind in the present moment. The mind hates the present moment. The mind loves the past, or to project to what the future is going to be, to that event that's waiting out there, bringing us anxiety. So like, you get a mantra and you just go for a walk and repeat that mantra over and over and over and over. That keeps your mind in the present moment. Get up, exercise. As soon as start doing push-ups, do jumping jacks, do some sit-ups, just don't sit and ruminate. That's the worst thing. I felt like when I read that book, I felt like I had multiple people in my mind, like watching, so like I got watching my thoughts for when I'm going into like this destructive cycle, and then I'm watching the watcher watch my thoughts. So it was like, double watching. And he talks about that, and like, so it's just to get awareness. Like, don't go through life unconscious where you just go into spin cycle and you're fine with it. And you just sit there like a drone, like it's just trauma. It's like sitting there rehashing over and over and over, it doesn't do you any good. So like, I just had this daughter of this girl I know, this lady I know. She's like, my daughter's going to reach out to you. This was last night. And she's like, I'm filled with anxiety and depression, and I don't know what to do, and I can't get out of bed. And, I just got on new the antidepressants, SSRIs. And so I go, look, you can't feed into the anxiety and depression by isolating and pulling the shades down and staying under the covers or staying on the couch. You got to get up. You got to get moving. You got to get out in society. You got to go for a walk. You got to exercise. You got to eat healthy. You got to meditate. You got to take back control of your mind and not just feed into that depressive state you're in. So that's the big thing to get out of it, just, you got to get present, meditate. It's so tough for people, but like you can do a breathing exercise. The guy Wim Hof, you heard of him? Like I do his breathing exercise every day, and it takes 11 minutes. So like get up 15 minutes earlier and do Wim Hof breathing exercise. There's 3 levels of it. And it's just inhaling, exhaling deep for 30 times and then holding your breath. And then inhaling, exhaling deep for another 30 times and then holding your breath for a little longer. And then a third time. And like you're in the present moment when you're doing that. So just, if sitting there, I got into, when I was in prison, Vipassana meditation. It was the very first time they offered a meditation course in prison, in a New Jersey prison. My therapist was like beyond excited. And she's like, you got to apply. Maybe you'll be one of the people. And I applied. I was one of the people. And we got to do Vipassana meditation. Vipassana meditation is like a body scan meditation. So you start at the tip of your head, you just acknowledge whatever you're feeling, any tingling, any aches, any pains. You don't concentrate, you don't fixate on them. You just do a body scan up and down. And you do breathing with it, do the meditation is big on the inhale and exhale of your breath and just concentrating on that. Do do stuff like that. People can Google Vipassana meditation, and then a thing on you can Google 5-minute meditation on YouTube. It'll come up. Google 10-minute meditation, 20-minute meditation. Start off with a 5-minute meditation. Inhale, exhale, concentrating on your breath. That's all you got to do. You got to break that cycle of your mind. Do a meditation, do a mantra with a brisk walk, start exercising, and just be aware of your thoughts and snap out of it as soon as you catch yourself going into that. So those are the things you can do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and kind of along the same lines. Like our brains are frequently, or not always, and frequently not our friends, right? And they work against us. And I think, like, I don't know what the actual number is of how many thoughts the average human has a day,
Right.
but to your point, you want to do an audit of what the hell's going on upstairs, because so much of it happens at a subconscious level, and you might be allowing yourself to spiral out of control in this thought process and not even really know what's happening before you. So,
right, and we get negative thoughts, we get positive thoughts, we get sexual thoughts, we get violent thoughts, we get horrible thoughts, we get death thoughts. They're thoughts. They come and go. You don't attach yourself to a thought. Like people get attached to their thoughts. You're gonna have 10,000 thoughts a day or something like that. So just don't attach yourself to them. They come and go. Some are nice and rosy, and some are like, "Ee, where'd that come from?" It's just a thought.
So yeah, tell us about therapy, because that's where we left off.
So like going back to the jail, like I starting like to exercise. Like I put on 60 pounds 1 year. So like starting with 2 push-ups. So just start exercising. Start reading. Hopefully you'll read my book, Scarred. Read self-help books. It's like everything's in there. It's my journey through life, and it's gonna take you from point A to point B where you want to get. I would be in jail, and I would be in prison, and I would be doing push-ups, and then I would go walk while my next set of push-ups is, I'm waiting to, rest for a couple minutes, and I'm repeating a mantra in my head. So I'm doing that. I'm doing push-ups, exercise. Then I'm doing my walk, mantra. I petitioned the jail, when I was still in the jail, to bring in healthier protein-based food items for commissary. And I went to the one lieutenant, and he said, "Yeah, all right, you got it." So I'll start eating healthier. Eat more protein. Get away from the carbs and the sweets. You got to start loving yourself again. I hated myself, so tell yourself what you're proud of. Like, look yourself in the mirror. 50% of the people can't look themselves in the mirror in the morning. The other 50% that do, 75% don't like what they see. So that leaves a little sliver of people, that look at themselves in the mirror like what they see. So look at yourself and tell yourself something positive to start the day, and start doing little tiny tasks. Like people that are down and out, like first thing to go is the cleanliness. Like everything gets cluttered. Their table in the living room will just be filled with crap. Their nightstand will be filled with crap. Their bed's unmade. Dishes are in the sink. Like you gotta start knocking off wins early in your day. So like if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, just pick some tiny little thing that you can do. Like maybe you can't even make the bed, but maybe you can fluff your pillow. Like I listened to Jordan Peterson, and he's dealing with people. I forget the term for people who can't leave their house. It's a certain phobia. And he'll try to get them just to look at the front door. Like just look at the front door. Or people who are so depressed they They can't clean anything. Just look at the vacuum. Just look at it. And, after a couple of days of looking at it, just go touch it. Go touch the vacuum. And then that front door that you've been looking at for a couple of days, just take one step towards it. All right, so now you've made it one step closer to that door. And then next week, you're going to take 2 steps to the front door. And next week with the vacuum, maybe you plug it into an outlet. That's all. You're just going to plug it in. It's no big deal. This is literally what you got to do when you're in that state. Like in jail, I was so down and out. When I would pray, I wouldn't pray for God to get me through the next day or the next hour. I would pray like, I'm hyperventilating. Like I'm on the verge of a panic attack. Like the weight of the world is on me. Just get me through the next 30 seconds. That's literally what you got to break it down to. That's how I broke it down before I even read anything on what you got to do or listened to Jordan Peterson. Like, I'd be like, just get me through the next 30 seconds, and then we'll deal with after that. So Jordan would have people, all of a sudden they're at the door now. There's weeks have gone by and they've taken another step, and he's like, just touch the door handle now. And then they'd be like, oh my God, I touched the door handle today. It's when you can't leave your house, touching the door handle to like the outside world is like huge. And the same thing with the vacuum. So set goals, little small tasks that you can accomplish and you can feel good about yourself. I got faith. The atheists want to scoff at faith. That's all well and good. For me, it just allowed light in and filled me up with love and light instead of pornography and hate and rage and alcohol and drugs. I'm 13 years sober and clean now. If you're abusing drugs and alcohol and you want to try to heal, they don't go hand in hand.
Congratulations.
Huh?
Congratulations on being 13 years sober.
Yeah. June 13th was the day I was arrested in 2012. And as the cops surrounded my house, I chugged 2 glasses of wine. And then I went out and got arrested on my front lawn. That's the last day I drank. So instead of remembering that day as the day I was arrested and thought my life was over, I've turned it into it's the day I got sober. This was the last day I had a drink.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So so you're gonna have to give up drugs and alcohol if you want to heal. Like you have to face your trauma. Like you can't keep numbing yourself. So I got therapy. I got group therapy. I'm eating healthy, and this is all things I carried over to the outside world and expanded upon. And I got faith. I started off a Bible study in the county jail, and in prison they had Bible study and church. Like the church things in prison were unlike anything. I went to the stuffy Episcopal church growing up. In prison they had a full-piece band, keyboardists, drums, guitar players, singers. Everybody's on their feet. It was amazing. There were lively sessions. You're in your cell for 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then you get out for 2.5 hours on a Sunday. You're ready to let loose, man. And those services in prison were amazing. I took a 15-week Vipassana meditation course. I fasted in prison. Like I had never exerted self-discipline or self-control. It was always, as I've mentioned, get a vice, go for that quick fix. I feel uncomfortable. I got to make that feeling go away. And knowing I was getting released in a year's time, I'm like, how can I develop self-control and self-discipline? How can I prove to myself I have it? I'm going to get released, and I've never exerted that muscle. I got to start doing things to prove to myself that I have self-control. So I stopped masturbating. Like when you're locked up, you just want to get your mind out of that environment, whether, for that short amount of time in the shower, you do not want to, you do not want to touch the walls in a jail or prison shower. Trust me on that one, man. you all wear shower shoes and do not bump up against any of the walls, man. So I stopped masturbating. I know I've sworn here today, but in telling my story, there's certain parts I gotta swear. But I stopped swearing when I was like, that was the toughest thing, and I still struggle with it now. But and then I fasted. Like the Muslims in there would fast, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna fast for a week. So like from sunrise to sunset, I didn't eat anything. So I would have coffee and water. That's it. So I did that for a week. And I was like, all right, I got some self-discipline, some self-control. And, nowadays, I wake up early, just lying in bed being a slug, and you're depressed and you got anxiety and you want to achieve goals. They don't go hand in hand, unless you do a podcast at 2 PM and you can sleep till late morning. I don't know what your routine is, but I get up early. I go instantly for a walk. It's a brisk 10 to 15-minute walk first thing in the morning, just to get the blood flowing, to get positivity. I say prayers while I walk. I do a gratitude list, doing either writing down what you're grateful for or speaking it out. It's to change that negative mind into positive. Do you want to say, well, my bank account's shit, my relationship with my partner's shit, my this is shit, my house is shit, my apartment's shit, my job's shit? Or do you want to say, I am grateful to wake up again today. I'm grateful that I can move my legs to go for a walk. I am grateful for the sun that's coming down today. I am grateful to hear birds chirping. They sound angelic, like they're from God. I am grateful for the health I have. You can find a million things you're grateful for, or you can just concentrate on the negative. You want to change that mindset of you. And that's what I had to do too. The negative mindset, man, that's a killer. So I worked on being grateful in prison, carried it over to the streets, faith, eating healthy. You gotta show yourself that you love yourself. So eat healthy. Tell yourself something positive in the mirror. Start doing things that, if you're not proud of how you've lived up to this moment, start changing that so you can look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you're proud of something. Accomplish those little tiny tasks. Doesn't have to be huge. And then you can be proud of that task accomplished. I got out of prison. I went and got baptized at the guy who taught the brother Bob, at the church where he was a pastor. And I read a statement why I was getting baptized. There was somebody in the audience from this child abuse center, and they approached me and said, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I'm going to be speaking at Centenary College. Would you like to be my guest speaker? I was like, absolutely. So I'm 4 months out of prison and I'm getting my first speaking gig. And I became an advocate for overturning the statute of limitations law in New Jersey for when you can sue either your abuser or the organization that employed your abuser. I wanted to file a lawsuit against the Boy Scouts. So I went and saw a lawyer, and he read me the law, and he said, you have no legal case right now. He goes, I could hook you up with advocates. It may be healthy for your mind to work as an advocate to overturn this law. He goes, they've been working for 15 years and haven't got anywhere. He goes, but maybe your story can help out. It's your story's so over the top. Maybe it'll, sway a couple senators that are holding the law. And whether it does or not, it'd be healthy for you. And I was like, all right, yeah, hook me up with him. So I met with an advocate in his office 2 weeks later, became an advocate, and we started calling on senators. And 2 years later, we went from the worst law in the country to the strongest law. And myself and all the other advocates, we can go to our grave knowing that we accomplished something great. And it paves the way for every other abuse victim. It used to be when you turned 18, you had 2 years to file a lawsuit. Who the hell's getting raped at 12 and coming forward at 18 to file a lawsuit? You're so damaged and traumatized. Like a lawsuit at 18 is the last thing you're thinking of. But now the law goes up to age 55 because our stats say that people who have been abused don't address it until age 48 to 52 in that window. So we got it up to age 55 to give you plenty of time to heal, confront, and then come forward. After that law got passed, I started speaking at a lot of substance abuse centers. Like my story really resonates with them because they say 2/3 to 95% of the people in substance centers have been abused or traumatized. Like there's a reason why you picked up an addiction. So my story really resonates with all of them. And I just spoke like every rehab around me, like just speaking there, speaking at churches, speaking at colleges, speaking. I got to go back to my high school and put on a speech to a packed crowd there in the auditorium. I did a documentary with the producers of Dateline NBC, and it aired on their Oxygen network. And to promote that, they put me on the Tamron Hall show, daytime talk show. I was on that. From doing that talk show, I had a speakers bureau from LA saw me on there, and they reached out to want to represent me to be a speaker. And that was right at the start of 2020. I was working as an assistant chef in a restaurant, and I quit my chef job. They had speeches lined up, for months. And my first speech they wanted to send me on was to South Korea, to an army base. And we know what happened at the start of 2020. It was COVID. And like somebody said to me, dude, like that COVID thing is like, it's like running rampant over in Asia. Like you may get over there and not get back in the country. Like you may want to rethink that. It was big money too to go over there. So it was tempting. And then I bailed on it. And like 2 weeks later, everything got shut down. And I'm thinking, it'll be a 2 months and this thing will, blow over. And then like it actually put that company out of business with their speaking. So like that never got off the board. I had a dream of having a book deal. I got a literary agent. I went through 3 book proposals. To get a book deal, you have to write a book proposal. I wrote 3 separate ones. He marketed it. First 2 fell flat. Third one, nothing. And all of a sudden, Simon & Schuster Publishing read it and made me a great offer on producing my book. And next month, July 29th, my book Scarred comes out. Major publishing deal, super excited. I told you about the girl in college that I walked away from. She scratched the inside of my skull for 30 years. Like I just, Dennis Pegg, ruined this relationship. And it bugged me. And after I got that law passed, not me, myself, us advocates got that law passed. I'm working these long hours at the restaurant, driving home, I'm alone, unfulfilled. And I'm like, I'm either going to get a pit bull. I've always wanted a pit bull. I'm either going to get a pit bull or a girlfriend. And I'm like, I've had Lisa like invading my thoughts for 30 plus years. And I go, it's not going to be fair to a girl I try to get a serious relationship with. I got to put Lisa to bed. So I got to tell Lisa, I'm sorry. I need to apologize to her. I need to tell her why I couldn't commit to her back in the day. And I found her on Facebook. I sent her a private message. I didn't know if she would respond or not. And, I thought to myself, is it better to keep the fantasy of Lisa alive in my head or to have her react negatively, say, dude, get over it. It's been 30 years, kick rocks, leave me alone. Like your mind's like, oh, how's this going to go, dude? And I'm like, maybe I should just keep this little fantasy alive and I can play with that, even if I'm with somebody else. And then I'm like, what are you, a pussy, bro? Like, man up, man. And I'm like, I've been through too much to stop now. So I sent her a message. It explained everything. She had already heard what happened. One of her roommates in college married one of my roommates in college, and they had filled her in. And I didn't know if she would respond. She responded, and I responded back, and she responded. And this went on for 2 weeks. And I'm like, you want to get a coffee? I lived in Jersey. She lived in New York. We met in the middle, had coffee, and realized at the end of that meeting that we still loved each other. And that was 6 years ago, April. And I live with her now in Westchester County, New York. So I'm giving you the short version. So in this book, with all this trauma, abuse, murder, prison, there's an unbelievable love story, romance thing mixed into it too. Nowadays, I'm a motivational speaker. I speak all over the place. I've got the book coming out. I coach people online. I started my own podcast, Free Like Me. Guests come in, speak their truth, and leave free like me. So it's just an avenue for people to come in and get rid of their trauma or their pain, whatever it may be from, and hopefully leave some valuable lessons for the audience to overcome their pain and trauma. And that's pretty much where I'm at today, brother.
Yeah, man. The book is excellent. I got a chance to read it ahead of its release, and man, I was telling you yesterday or whenever it was that we were talking just about I thought it was written kind of in the style that you talk, which I really appreciate. I don't like when people try to fluff it up with unnecessary words and kind of derail the story. And it's like listening to you talk, which is very palatable and enjoyable because you tell your story really well. But the book was excellent. I'll have a link to the book in the description below. But I got a couple more questions I want to ask you because I was thinking about kind of this idea of like forgiveness. And
that's a buzzword, that gets used a lot nowadays.
So I think that it is maybe oversimplified in these sort of I don't know, call it a trauma story or narrative. It becomes oversimplified, and I think people will tell you that you need to forgive your abuser in order for you to move on. And I guess maybe to start, like, how does that sit with you? What do you think about that?
Forgiveness to me is directed solely at yourself, for you to forgive yourself. Because those of us who have experienced trauma and abuse, we start living certain ways, as I've just told you. I've got a million things I could re-traumatize myself with. I did like such stupid crap when I was drunk and high. I murdered. I could fixate on all the negative stuff, but you got to forgive yourself. Like you're literally just trying to keep your lips above water so you're not sucking in water and drowning. Like that's how I was my whole life, just like keeping my head an inch above the waterline. And that's how people are. And, there's some people, anger, like the anger I have towards Dennis Pegg, anger doesn't have to be a negative thing. Anger gets a negative connotation, but it's not. You can use anger as fuel for doing a lot in life, for propelling you forward to where you want to be. Anger could be used for self-destruction, which I did long enough. But my anger now is used for accomplishing goals. So don't let people tell you anger is a negative thing. You can use anger for positive. So use your anger for positive. It would be disingenuous of me to say, I forgive Dennis Pegg. I forgive him. And it's a myth that all abusers were abused themselves. One of my therapists started her career in a diagnostic center for pedophiles. They would give lie detector tests to every person there. Every 100% would claim to have been abused. When they would give the lie detector test, they would ask that question, were you abused as a child? 75% would fail. She said they want sympathy for their actions. And it's a myth. There was nothing in any of the interviews with his family members that would indicate he had been abused at all. Nobody said, our uncle or the mailman or our father or, nothing about him being abused. So we got to come to the fact that there's just evil people in the world. Like what created him? I don't know. Was he just born with stuff out of balance, out of whack? Did life get a hold of him and change him? He was obviously homosexual. Was it just being this big, strong, burly man and he couldn't handle homosexuality, so he looked for control over little children? I don't know. But I'm not going to forgive him. Like the guy anally raped me. So you want me to say, I forgive you for anally raping me. He drove Jeff to put a shotgun in his mouth. My brother's dead because of him. So somebody said, I've had a couple holier than thou people. 2 people in my life, and then a few online trolls who are just like, Clark, you can't be a good Christian if you have hate in your body and you don't forgive. You have to forgive. No, I don't. I do not. I am fine with hating Dennis Pegg. Like, it's not making me deteriorate or be self-destructive or abuse drugs or alcohol or whatever. So people that reach out to me, and I'm like, look, some people say I absolutely cannot move on in life if I don't forgive this person. It's holding me back. I'm like, by all means. Like, it's an individual thing. If you need to forgive your abuser so that you can proceed forward in life, have at it. But for a blanket statement that all abuse survivors, all you're doing is re-traumatizing the survivor. Like, if you say you have to forgive your abuser or you're a bad person, like, really? Oh my God, some of the stories I've heard, and you really want that person, like the most sick, sadistic stuff, and you want that person who had to go through that to now say, I'm sorry to my abuser. I forgive you. Like, really? It's insanity. It doesn't even make logic. None of my pastors have ever took me aside and said, Clark, to be a good Christian, you need to forgive Dennis Pegg. None of them have done that. I had 2 people in my life who said that to me, and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Thanks for your opinion, but you can keep that.
Well, I'm glad you like that. Makes the most sense to me personally. Is it should be an individual thing, not somebody who's going to sit across from you in a therapy room that has never had that happen to them tell you because they read it in a book somewhere that this is how you should feel about it and this is how you need to handle it.
Just to state, I've had 3 different therapists over the years, and not one of them ever. I've brought this up to all of them, and they said absolutely not.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And another thing that you said that they say a lot of abusers were abused.
Right.
And what percentage excuse people allocate to that when they view that story is, it's not for me to say, but what I would think is that would be like you doing that to children now. And like, who better than you to understand the damage that causes to a child? And then you're going to go then replicate that and justify it to yourself in your sick fucking mind that it's okay. So I'd like to remove that from, again, I think
Do you know the
nonsense.
millions and millions and millions of abuse survivors in just this country alone? Like, if all of us were if all of us to become the same as what was done to us, it would be complete disaster. There's like 60 million or something abuse survivors. So like, are 60 million running around doing the same thing? No. I did a speech for the state of Pennsylvania Department of Probation for juvenile sex offenders. So they're dealing with strictly juvenile sex offenders. And the lady who hired me, who runs this department, she said, Clark, I think the work we do is extremely valuable. She's like, when you're a child, you duplicate what was done to you. And she said, we get these kids and we put them into intensive supervision, intensive therapy, and we keep them until age 21 in all these programs that we have. And she said, it's a lot different than if you're a 40-year-old male, 50-year-old male who's abusing kids. She's like, you're beyond redemption at that point. I had the prosecutor in my case on my podcast. And I asked him that. I go, can pedophiles be rehabilitated? And in New Jersey, there's Avenel. It's a prison. It's a diagnostic center, though, for pedophiles. And he's like, I've got the stats for pedophiles who've been arrested and go to Avenel and have all this intensive work done on them while they're abused. And then I have the stats on those that don't go to not every pedophile goes to Avenel. It's just a certain few. And then I have the stats on those that went to other prisons and didn't have all this therapy and supervision and work that they did. And he said there's almost no discrepancy in the reoffending numbers from those that were in Avenel getting all this work. So he's like, it really doesn't show that it does much. That's not coming from me. That's coming from the prosecutor in my case. And the therapist in prison who came to my cell that day, at some point, she came to me in one of our sessions. She said, Clark, the unit you're on, C unit, she goes, I just want you to be aware that 1 out of 3, closer to 2 out of 3 guys on your unit is there for a sex crime, mostly involving children. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, all those dudes, 2 out of 3 almost? She goes, yeah. And she goes, I don't want you to let out what you're in here for killing a pedophile, because it's called putting a battery powered back on your back. She goes, I don't want them to try to put a battery powered backpack on you to get you to do something against somebody. I go, look, I'm not here to avenge every pedophile in here. I'm like, I did what I did, and I'm paying my price right now. If I got a life sentence, that might be a different story, But I wasn't there I was there to heal and to grow and not to go around beating up pedophiles. But she didn't want me to let out why I was there. Guys find out anyway, But I said to her, I go, what do you do for all these pedophiles? If there's that many here, why are they here? Are they all getting intensive therapy? And she goes, we do absolutely nothing for them. I go, what? And she goes, and now this is a very liberal person. To be a social worker therapist in a prison, it's a very liberal position. And she would make no qualms about it. And she's like, Clark, they're master manipulators and they're liars and they don't want help. It would be a complete waste of our time to sit down with them. She goes, they simply don't want help. So I go, they're all here to reoffend, to just do their time and then probably go out and reoffend. And she goes, yes. I was like, wow. Scary.
Yeah. It's not shocking to me, unfortunately, but yeah, I don't want to end it on them because this is not about them. So I just want to ask you if there's, and dude, this is one of the things that I absolutely love about this is that this will be on the internet forever, hopefully. And there could be somebody watching this in 50 years from now and hearing your story and it's helping them right now. So I guess what would you, if there's a person out there that's watching this and is carrying the same weight that you carried for all those years, and again, that you still carry, but in a different way now, what would you say to that person?
Well, like I said, I've said all throughout this, like doing what I did will not heal you. So you're carrying this weight. Every abuse survivor, male, female, Republican, Democrat, you can tell from their Facebook page or what they post on Instagram, which side of the aisle they fall on. They've all reached out to me and they've wanted to do the same exact thing I've done. And I'm like, I go, look, it doesn't heal you. So like somebody out there carrying this weight, if you want to go do what I did, you like I said earlier, you're going to end up in prison with that trauma still, but now you're in hell. Like it's going to be compounded tenfold, 100-fold, your misery. So just address your trauma. Like there was nobody speaking out when I was a child. I grew up in the 70s, born in 1965. This wasn't talked about. Priests were exalted. Boy Scout leaders were looked up to. Doctors, lawyers, cops, teachers, coaches. You didn't talk bad about anybody. Kids were meant to be seen, not heard. It's talked about now. It's still not like as much as it should, but I try to pave the way for people to feel comfortable to open up. I'm a male who was abused by a male. So it's out there. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my brother to want to get to the other side of the fence. I just had this guy who's an alcoholic on the show. And he's like, I was so much more comfortable in my pain, abusing myself, because getting sober and getting clean and straightening out my life just seemed like Mount Everest. And I just didn't want to I just wasn't ready for most of my life to tackle Mount Everest. And he's like, and I had to get to the conclusion that everything good or bad that had happened in my life was due to me. I had to take accountability. So, and then he finally decided to get sober. And he's like, now that I'm sober, it wasn't this big scary monster that my mind told me it was going to be. So your mind's telling you, talking about trauma is just the scariest thing in the world. You got to find somebody you trust. If you can't go to your spouse, if you can't go to your parent, tell somebody, you need to tell them something, somebody you trust, and tell them, though, I'm not looking for you to fix me. People get so uncomfortable when we talk about stuff, they think they have to go into a fix mode. They got to be therapist mode. They got to be the nurse, They got to help you. No, just sit in the mud with me, sit in a sandbox, and let me tell you something, and just let me get it out. I don't need you to fix me. So you got to get it out. Like the first time, if you look at my allocution statement in court on YouTube, I can hardly get words out. I'm breaking down. I'm making myself so small in the seat, just sniffling and crying and blubbering. And then now I can sit here for 3+ hours with you and get through it. Mm-hmm. I can get up on stage in front of 1,000 people and talk and get through it. It gets easier the more you talk about it. So, but you got to get that first one under your belt. And like we mentioned earlier, I've outlined for people how to get healthy. You got to stop abusing drugs and alcohol. If you're dealing if you're in my position, like I was before the murder, you got to get clean, sober. You got to let light into your being. If you're harboring this deep, dark secret and you're not letting go of this trauma, you're filled with that dark cloud, that ugliness. You gotta find a way to let light in there. Start meditating, start exercising, get faith. Start eating healthy. Tell yourself you love yourself. Start doing small goals that you can accomplish. Make your friggin' bed in the morning. It's the little simple things. And you'll slowly start to heal and share this trauma. Don't keep it. We isolate. We keep it to ourselves. The weight of the world is on us, and we're just burdened down by it. So, just life is too short and precious to waste another single day being held down by your trauma. Guard this real estate in your mind here. This is the most valuable real estate you'll ever have. And don't let that predator, pedophile, abuser in here control you any longer. When you can't talk about your abuse, it's still in control of you. When you can talk about it, now it's on your terms and you're in control of it, and it's a big shift.
Dude, this has been incredible. I don't play favorites with my guests because everybody that comes in here, I appreciate their time equally, and everybody's got a different story to tell. But I will say I think this is probably the most important interview that I've done in this room before.
Awesome.
So yeah, dude, and I just met you. I'm looking forward to the friendship, but like, I don't know. I feel the need to tell you that, like, bro, I think you kind of glossed over the law reform on the statute of limitations. You were a very important part of that. Your testimony specifically, in my outsider opinion, seemed to have pushed it over the edge. You're doing the world a great service by going to a place that you don't want to go anymore to help people in the future, like indefinitely. And that's what this is. So like, again, I just met you. In my opinion, shouldn't mean a ton to you, but I feel the need to tell you that, like, you and that kid Clark that I got choked up about before, I think he would be really fucking proud of what you're doing now, and you should be too, bro. So thank you for your time and how open you are and vulnerable you are, and the gigantic balls that you've shown by going through this story. And thank you, bro. This was incredible, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Give me some love. Oh.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the interview. If you got anything out of this video at all, please like the video, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought of the video, tell me who you'd like to see on the show. I really appreciate the support. It goes a long way on these platforms, as you guys know. Most importantly, I have some excellent interviews coming up in the future that I'm really, really excited about. So please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of them. But that's it. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you again soon.